Hello. Hello, there we go. Alright. And let's start this up. Vincent Price, baby.
The Price of Fear. Brought to you by Vincent Price.
Hello. I know there are those amongst you who will consider the old adage, every picture tells a story, as debatable as it is familiar. As a lifelong art collector and enthusiast myself, I have often speculated that the story surrounding a picture, the human drama, can prove infinitely more fascinating than any story in paint. Trapped within the confines of a frame. And the tale I'm about to tell you, which I've called An Eye for an Eye, will, I'm sure, convince you of the truth of this. Recently, I went to an important sale of Impressionist paintings. The auction room just off London's fashionable St. James was packed to capacity with art speculators from the four corners of the globe.
Lot 23, Auguste Renoir, Anemones, oil on canvas 38 inches by 14. An opening bid of 25,000. And 5, 30, 35. Bidding at 35 against you, sir. 40, 45, thank you. Now standing at 45.
Renoir, Monet, Manet, Degas. Each in their turn glowed briefly down at us from the auctioneer's easel, to be knocked down with almost indecent haste and returned backstage for crating and shipping.
Lot 97, Camille.
The auctioneer's voice was tiring now. The serious business of the day was over.
Lot 98, Study of a Girl. Attributed to Pissarro, unsigned, unauthenticated. Oil on canvas 20 inches by 12, from the estate of the Count Luigi della Santa. Opening bid invited, I think, ladies and gentlemen.
Study of a Girl. And there she was, smiling into the gloom of that near-deserted auction room. My old friend, Luigi della Santa, notorious acquisitor of yachts and palazzos and paintings and celebrities. Now here, this, his last prized acquisition, Study of a Girl. As I consulted the catalogue and smiled ruefully that even in death, Luigi steadfastly insisted on his beloved title of Count, it seemed ironically appropriate that the pedigree of his beloved painting should now turn out to be as unauthenticated as his own. But how long ago it all seemed. How long? Midsummer. I'd just completed a long stint of filming in and around Naples. After the sweltering heat of those studio arcs, Luigi's invitation to spend a few days with him on his yacht, anchored off of Sorrento, would have been eagerly accepted in any event, but I remembered as the launch ferried me across the mirror smoothness of that beautiful bay that it was the prospect of at last viewing Luigi's recently acquired Pissarro that made the invitation totally irresistible.
Well, Vincenzo, you like it? Well,
it's beautiful, quite beautiful.
Of course. You see, Contessa, didn't I tell you that my very good and wise friend would come and that he would like it, didn't I?
Yes, Luigi, you did.
And now, Vincenzo, you must tell me how much you like it. $5,000 worth? $10,000?
Luigi, she's exquisite.
Exquisite. Oh, she is perfection. She is the perfection of perfection. She is the perfection of perfection.
You're spilling your wine, Caro.
And yet, would you believe it, when I tell you, my friend, There are still those dilettantes, those ingrates, those whoremongers who have the gall to insult the intelligence by saying that it cannot be the work of the master.
Luigi the master did not think fit to sign it.
What need for him to sign it when every line makes a signature? I tell you, this is not a painting. It is an experience. She is alive, vibrant.
Oh, such passionate enthusiasm, Luigi. I shall begin to suspect I have acquired a rival. Vincenzo, if you will permit. It is not the wine of my country, but then it is not the wine of my choosing. The Count prefers to import. So instead of buona fortuna, permit me to wish you bon chance.
Bon chance. As she proposed the toast, the charms of Luigi's Contessa di Terra
It's coming through good.
made those of the artist model obvious, commonplace, and it was almost as though the Contessa were reading my thoughts.
But I feel sure you will forgive dear Luigi's schoolboy enthusiasm for this new acquisition, Vincenzo. As a lifelong friend, you will doubtless have witnessed many such enthusiasms.
It isn't difficult to forgive. I so wholeheartedly share.
Ha! Bravo, my friend.
Perhaps. But between
Bravo.
you and Luigi, the appreciation has always been different, I think.
Oh, how different.
Be warned, Vincenzo. It is not wise to encourage her.
Because watching you see the painting for the very first time, there was peace. It was not hard to tell that for you, the appreciation was for the talent it contained, for the genius. You understood what had been intended and what had been achieved.
And for me? Is it not the same for me?
Pray, Luigi, permit me to finish. You see, Vincenzo, before Luigi permits me the time to make a point, he is so perfectly demonstrating it. It is not what the painting does inside of him that makes him so determined to possess it. It is simply because there are others who might wish to possess it even more than he does. The price is all that is important for him. He asks how much you think it is worth. $5,000? 10? And when you refuse to give him the answer...
Am unable to.
See how prettily he sulks. Oh, it's not his fault, you understand. It does not make me love him less, but everything in this so beautiful life is reduced to the level of price, status, possession. Everything which is bad enough, but every one worse. Oh, much worse. But possession, life, cannot always be that simple. People, things, cannot always be caught in the net of our understanding, just as it is not always possible to divorce the manner of our deaths from the manner of our lives.
Ah, Tante Dante, much talk makes for much hunger.
What does she talking?
Scusa, Count. La colazione è servito.
Si, Carlos, si. Come, my friends, we are to take luncheon on the deck. Besides, after so much play-acting in the dark, Vincenzo, it is now necessary we turn the color to your cheeks, eh?
Well, there's nothing I'd like better.
Also, most important, Luigi has yet another treat in store.
Another?
See, to mark the private viewing of this so beautiful painting, the great Luigi, master chef of all the Italias, has himself created a unique gastronomic masterpiece. Emile, worthy of a gourmet of such international repute as you.
Oh, my dear Luigi, such flattery. At this rate, the color will be returned to my cheeks much sooner than you anticipate.
We shall see, Vincenzo. We shall see.
Contessa?
We shall see.
Our lunch party looked like being a jolly affair, to begin with anyway. The wine and the sun went straight to our heads, and the Contessa's affectionate baiting of Luigi continued good-humoredly as the first course was served. The question of Luigi's title provided her readiest target of attack. As to his true origins, well, there were many who insisted that his father could still be found running a small trattoria in that straggling, impoverished town we now viewed across the bay.
So why doesn't he admit it? Be proud to admit it.
She's drunk.
You see, it is always so. But he refuses to accept. He laughs away. Is that not so, Vincenzo?
I think I'll just concentrate on this excellent wine.
Oh, but you disappoint me. What? You tell me that you, too, are afraid to burst this ridiculous balloon.
Perhaps because Vincenzo has the good sense to realize it is not a balloon. And that it certainly is not ridiculous. It is...
What is it? Bambino, what is it?
It is an insult. It is a double insult of my lineage and breeding.
Oh, I'm sorry, Luigi.
Oh, so don't be my friend. It's good to laugh at such archaic distinctions.
Vincenzo has seen the papers. Is that not true?
I have
Like
seen...
there's an insult.
Papers are for the forging. So, has Vincenzo seen my papers? Of course he has not. And why has he not? Because he does not need to. He has only to use his eyes to realize I am of the line, just as you are of the gutter.
Then why does the Contessa dishonor her line by sitting at my table?
Oh, because even a penniless Contessa has to eat somewhere. And like his cook of a father and his cook of a grandfather before him, Count Luigi
insulting the
still
motherfucker.
makes the best fish soup in the whole of Italy. True, fellow.
True, my father and his father before him made the best soup.
Good, Caro.
The Contessa's high praise for Luigi's culinary skills were justified, certainly, whether inherited or not. After a lifetime of experience, I've come to the conclusion that there are only really two kinds of master chef. Those who have spent long years perfecting their skills, and those who have added to this a simple flair, an ability to transform the simplest meal into something near approaching a work of art.
But now, my good friends, your attention, your undivided attention, if you please. It is with the greatest pride and pleasure Luigi himself presents to you his own original creation. Speciality of the house. Vincenzo.
Luigi waited. As I peered into the deep, serving tureen he set in front of me, I remember thinking that after the great build-up he'd given it, his specialty of the house turned out to be something of an anticlimax. The ingredients were certainly commonplace enough, served on a bed of rice, a veritable hodgepodge of all the kinds of fish native to the locality. Something I'd frequently enjoyed with a bottle of ordinary vino at any harborside trattoria.
So, you like it? But now, why don't you look even closer, my friend?
He was waiting again. So, simply to oblige him, I did look closer, and then I saw it. A large octopus sat squarely upon its bed of lobster pieces and king-sized prawns. To my best recollection, I'd never seen one cooked whole before. So perhaps this was the special touch my Italian friend had in mind. And then it happened. The creature's great saucer eyes opened and gazed balefully into mine. God, it was alive.
Now he sees. So, how do you like my little beauty?
I'm not sure.
But I have created a new delicacy.
A live delicacy?
Alive, Vincenzo.
Yeah.
Between us, we will set a new gastronomic trend.
Did you hear?
Oh, purists like the Contessa may
I slapped that shit off the
condemn it.
fucking table.
A return to marine cannibalism, perhaps.
Wouldn't you?
But I tell you, Vincenzo, and you will agree for yourself, that in the gastronomic stakes, a live lobster boat screaming to the boil will prove strictly for the peasant. Now, Please. Well, taste it.
I'm sorry. At first, I just thought it was some kind of a joke.
A joke?
But as a matter of fact, I'm still not sure if you... But it isn't, is it?
No.
I'm sorry, Luigi.
You object?
Well, simply, let's say, decline.
But
I
why?
can't explain.
Try. For Luigi's sake, why don't you try?
Even for Luigi's sake. Well, I'm just not sure I can. It's something to do with the very aliveness of the thing, of course, but more than that, it's the eyes. A sort of watchfulness in the eye.
You disappoint me, my friend. You know that? You disappoint me.
I'm
Where the hell
sorry.
am I? How did I get
You
down
object.
here?
But you cannot even begin
Did
to
you put me down
explain
here?
why you object.
Luigi, please. Vincenzo is your guest.
For which I'm sorry.
Yes, you
Because
did.
not only does he show a singular lack of adventure, but because he stupidly finds the dish somehow
Cassie, I told her
on
to stop.
humanitarian grounds.
How do I get
True
out?
or not true? But why? The oysters you love, are they not live? A well-known scientific fact. All sea creatures are impervious to pain. Any 10-year-old angler
How do
will
I
tell you,
get
my
out of
friend,
this hole?
they have no brain, no mind, no nervous system, let alone the so-called finer feelings which you and the Contessa would seem to attribute to them. Apart from which, the pathetic specimen you see before you is itself possessed of those same cannibal instincts which you now accuse me of possessing.
I accuse you of nothing, Luigi.
Always sucking into the disgusting chasm of its stomach a million tiny sea creatures. To first digest, and then spew out the remains which are neither palatable or necessary to its uniquely selfish existence.
Except that you have overlooked one thing, Luigi.
Huh?
We have no way of knowing. In spite of the sworn word of any 10-year-old angler, we have no way of
When you
really
were done,
knowing whether the creature we see squirming in front of us is capable of feeling or not.
Knowing, my dear Contessa, what is there to know?
Everything. Anything. Simply because, perhaps, it chooses to reveal nothing. We shall never know. Not unless it were possible for one of us to take its place
Uh-oh.
at this very moment. To be on the receiving end.
Somebody gonna get
Permit
cannibalized?
me to produce the evidence.
With a single deft, circular movement of his knife, Luigi removed one of those enormous eyes. The creature attempted vaguely to scale the deep sides of the dish, but at last, realizing there could be no escape, floundered back, stonily regarding Luigi with its one remaining eye. The mucus from its socket mingled now with the rich Madeira of the sauce that had replaced its natural element.
Did you hear that?
Luigi regarded it dispassionately, then flicked the eye on the heavy silver of his embossed plate.
Luigi's a sick bastard. Ain't he?
That evening, over after-dinner brandies, my squeamishness turned to embarrassment. An apology seemed in order, and I was happy to provide it.
But, my dear Vincenzo, there is nothing to be forgiven. Unless it is the weather. More brandy.
Oh, thank you.
I had planned on taking the launch to show you a few of the night spots across the bay, but I'm afraid until the storm decides to blow itself out,
Think no more of it. I'm really perfectly happy.
it is a good deal more than can be said for the Contessa, I think. Isn't that so, Caro?
Oh, if you say so, Luigi, then I suppose it must be.
But you hardly said a word since lunch.
Haven't I?
You know you haven't.
Oh, then I can only blame the storm. Unless it is that it's late and I'm tired. I really would like to retire for the night.
Oh, but of course.
So soon, Contessa. The night is young.
No, dear Luigi. The night is never young. It is the same age at its birth as at its death. It is we who must inhabit the bright lights of day. We grow old. As old as we are allowed to grow. Good night.
Good night, Countess.
A cigar, perhaps?
I'm sorry, Luigi. I wasn't...
Now you're doing it again, my friend. Apologizing for one thing and overreacting for another.
Am I?
Yes, you are overreacting to my contest. But then you have been all day.
Well, then Well, I certainly didn't intend to.
But found it impossible not to.
Well, it is late, Luigi.
You will see, my friend. The effect she has on us is infectious.
Oh, please. I only meant it's been rather a long day. But if you'd rather...
No, I insist. Whatever our mysterious lady claims to the contrary, tomorrow is another day. We shall welcome it together.
Well, good night, Luigi. By the way, it's macabre of me, I know. But what did happen?
You want to know what happened to our one-eyed sea monster?
Yes.
Thrown overboard with the rest of the garbage? Oh, not out of any finer sense of returning it to its own. I do assure you, its remains will attract the other sea creatures. The cycle of cannibalism perpetuates itself. Besides, it makes for excellent fishing. If you promise to get up before noon, I'll get one of the crew to fix us up with a couple of lines.
Good night. I lay in my cabin listening to the storm. It was strange how deeply Luigi's mood of the evening had disturbed me. The extrovert, arrogant Luigi. And it had been a long day, so sleep now. Gently, gratefully, into sleep. Sleep.
So where are you?
I'm right there. I'm saying.
Is there an easy way out? What is it we're doing now?
Isabella?
You fucked up.
Isabella, mon amore. Is that you? Don't. Please, don't, Isabella. Oh, my God. No. No. Ah!
Was a current pit. It leads right out. So.
It was the steward, Carlos, who found him. But having seen what he had seen, he would
Sounded
not
like
again venture
The
into the
octopus got
cabin.
him.
Straddled grotesquely across the bed, in a splatter of torn flesh and blood,
See what I mean?
was
Yes.
the thing that had been Luigi. There were the marks of giant tentacles about the dull, snapped head. The tongue rolled gigantic from between those swollen purple lips. But overall, there was the unmistakable evidence that the whole head had been somehow, inexplicably, pulped outwards, as though it had first been sucked in under some enormous, unnatural pressure, fed upon, and the remains spewed out again onto the fine linen of those monogrammed pillows. But not all spewed back.
Luigi's head got
Not
sucked to
all
death.
totally discarded. For when I could bring myself to look at the thing again, there was no mistaking the fact. Only one of Luigi's eyes stared back. The other socket lay seeping, empty. The Contessa was standing at my side.
How do we know they have no feelings? How do we know they are not capable of understanding and of revolt? And if revolt, why not revenge? A revenge to be fearfully enacted by others of their own kind. Larger, stronger, more terrifying than anything we dare.
How do we know they have no feelings?
There is no evidence such monsters do exist. But is there any proof that they do not?
I looked away from that single cyclops eye, and leading from what remained a trail of slime, much like the slime of some enormous slug, I followed its course. It climbed the French brocade wallpaper, shattered the high chromium finish of the porthole, crossed the deep teak polish of the deck beyond, and from thence it slimed down the hull.
Yuck.
The spume of it still floated out there, oil-like, on the calm waters of that beautiful Italian bay. Then it descended eternally into the dark depths that lay beneath.
That was Vincent Price bringing you The Price of Fear, with Roger Snowden, Anne Jemison, and Christopher Bidmead. An Eye for an Eye was first recounted and dramatized by William Ingram and produced by John Dias.
Spooky, man. Spooky. What's this one called?
The Price of Fear, brought to you by Vincent Price.
Yes, I remember Adlestrop, the name, because one afternoon of heat, the express train drew up there unwontedly. Hello, welcome. That poem by Edward Thomas will, I feel sure, be familiar to some of you, but for myself, well, let's say it evokes a very particular occasion. A story so bizarre and so horrendous, I still find it difficult to decide whether it actually happened or not. I've called it Blind Man's Bluff. But to begin at the beginning, then. I was on my way to visit some friends in a remote part of the West Country. The train was certainly no express, but we were jogging along quite nicely through the lovely Cornish countryside when suddenly we braked and stopped. An unscheduled stop at, hardly a station even, at its best a country halt, so insignificant that it was not even considered worthy of a name board. The window was already lowered to its full. I looked out on a single small shack, which obviously served as ticket and parcel office combined, but no activity there, or for that matter, anywhere else. Discarded and rusting milk churns, a mongrel dog panting in the sun, the drone of bees, and far off over the fields, a glimpse of a church tower, but no life. No apparent reason for what seemed a simply endless delay, until at the very moment when I'd all but decided to investigate the reason, we began to pull away. It was then I saw him.
Wait, Martin! In the name of God, wait!
A man rushing through the entrance along the platform towards the now fast-moving train, rushing so heedlessly that it seemed he actually intended to throw himself under the very wheel.
Wait, Samuel, wait!
Instinctively and probably against my better judgment, I opened the compartment door, called out, offered a hand, and finally managed to haul him aboard. But it wasn't until I'd subsided into my seat directly opposite my rescued companion that I realized how truly foolhardy we had both been. The man was blind, quite blind.
I know you are. Truly kind. To risk yourself like that. Truly kind.
Oh, no, the least I could do. Anyone would have done the same.
Oh, they wouldn't. You take it from me, they wouldn't.
What?
Not anyone, not most either. Most would have stood and watched, maybe even hoped for the worst. How about that?
The worst were you surely not suggesting.
Miss put in a sudden topple or screeching of brakes, and then all climbed out to see. My God, to pull their putrid eyeballs. By God, the thing under the wheels. By God, I know. You see. By God, how I know.
His knuckles were white about the stick, gnarled white knuckles about the white peeling paint of his blind man stick. He wore a long, old-fashioned raincoat, reached quite down to his ankles. In spite of the stifling heat, he buttoned it up tight around his throat, and a black beret pulled down almost to his eyebrows. But most of all, the spectacles, so deep and black, they seemed like the sockets of the dead, fathomless, with only the reflection of my own curiosity staring back at me, my own reflection, and the sudden and uncomfortable conviction that I was being watched, and assessed, inexorably assessed.
Oh, don't think I don't know why they wish it. I know fine why, all right.
I beg your pardon, I do.
Misfortune, calamity. It gives them this feeling of power, you see. It gives them the feeling of being one up all the time, of being superior all the time.
Oh, but surely the majority of us must be allowed some feeling of compassion.
Compassion, they said. Oh, dear.
Well, I certainly never intended to suggest that we're all alike.
And foolish to presume. Still, you did offer a helping hand at risk of life and limb, I'll grant you that. But smoke then if you must.
Why?
Well, are you damn well going to light up right?
How did you know that I wanted a cigarette?
Perception. There's a toffee nose word for you in it. But bang on target, all right.
Yeah.
Get done with it then.
Oh, I think.
Perception. It's the gift God gives us specials, you see, to make up for the things He's taken away. God. Or the devil. Or whatever.
Will you smoke too?
No. There's no good looking put out. Never could abide the damn thing.
Well, look, if you'd rather, I
I
did.
didn't say that, did I? Suggested it in the first place, didn't I?
Yeah.
If you build it, they will come.
Kind of you to ask. Kind of you to offer.
Dear.
Perception. No sight. None. Never have done.
Oh, I am sorry.
But smell, touch, read your mind like a book and no mistake. So don't ever get round to thinking different. No, well, sorry for that. Not wanting to say that, just by way of protecting myself, you see. But most on account of him.
Of him?
Boy Con. Con be name, Con be nature. Never told him to his face, of course. It would have been the end of me to tell it to his face.
The blind man's knuckles tightened about the handle of his stick again. But a sudden tautness about the shoulders, too, a feeling of violence, so suppressed, so pent. I hesitated to ask the next question, but there was no need. Again, he anticipated me.
Read you like a bird. But I told you that once already, and I
Yes, you
can't think about it anymore. Not a thing to be thought about, you see.
Your friend, then?
No friend. Never a friend. Oh, time passing and all, begins to wonder if he wasn't sent. A means, maybe. A means of getting me own back.
Revenge?
People, the world, the way it was decided for me. Happy once before, Con. Mother. Oh, just a small farm worker's cottage. Only home I'd ever known. Familiar to me. Familiar as the back of this hand. Important, that, knowing it's every corner, every stair. The way every stick of furniture was arranged. And her never changing anything around. Give you a feeling of security I couldn't have found nowhere else. She gave me that. My mother gave me that.
I can see what it must have meant to you.
You can see. She paid for it, mine. Worked up at the big house, not the mansion exactly, but the way she described it as me, yours makes no difference. Hard work, bad pay, long hours. Again, ruddy power of the strong or the weak in it. But at least the stinking pittance they allowed kept the thatch over her head. The sacrifice I was glad to make. Never did get over her death. Bad enough sitting by the side of the bed and watching somebody die. But when all you got to go by is the feel, the pulse, the listening to their breathing. Hard, that.
Well, what did you do after?
First off, seen no answer. Bit she managed to say, put on the side, well, soon gone. Then one day I get this idea, almost as though it meant me to get it. Not a damn sound when it seemed at the time.
Oh?
Well, this is still their old room standing empty in there.
Oh, yes, Odger, you mean.
And why not? I think still plenty of harvest labour being taken on up at the estate, all crying out for a place to lay their heads. And me with no barn loft neither. A fair share of home comforts besides. Also, I put this card stuck up in the post office window tonight, and I waits. I waits. But not for too long. Convoy sort of that.
Home from home, he has a ruddy gall to call it.
This was my mother's room.
Yeah, we still don't make it a suite at the Waldorf, do we? Yeah, junk. You
What?
never see such junk.
Please, be careful.
Oh, not to worry. Can always have it written in the lease, can't we? Some kind of inventory. Did you ever get round to your actual inventory, Pops? Oh, dear, oh, dear. Oh, well, there's one little item we won't have to be worrying our heads about.
Please,
In the name of God, let's have this window open. The whole ruddy place stinks of mothballs.
Oh, You could make some changes. The room would be yours, so you've been entitled to make some changes.
Yeah, there'll be some changes, all right.
If you think the rent too high, we could discuss.
I'd like the asking price and wait. But there would be changes, yes. Changes, all right.
I see.
Well, love of God. You didn't honestly think I'd be moving in and just taking your old lady's place, did you? Did you, Pops? Taking over the nurse companion bit just where she left off?
Oh.
If it's the white stick and Alsatian dog kick you're after,
No.
you should have tried getting it straight from the start.
As far as my handicap goes,
Well, then?
I think I'm self-sufficient.
Oh, sure you are. I noticed that. The way you groped yourself across that landing just now,
It's
eh?
been some time since me mother's death. Well, some time.
How about the way you tumbled across that chair the minute we get through the door? Just a touch of the old circus act for my benefit, I suppose.
When she was ill, there was this nurse. Rearranged some of the furniture in view of the special circumstances, you understand.
Yeah, I understand, Pops. The $64 question is, do you?
Sorry.
Dumb as well as blind, eh? Well, I'm asking you, Pops. If you finally got round to persuading me to move into this rat-ridden garret, do you honestly know what you'll be letting yourself in for? Eh? Pot luck at the best and at the worst.
You're making it sound like some kind of threat.
Change, Pops. But then it all comes down to that, in the end.
But you still agreed to take him?
Not at first, but the weeks passed. There were no other offers. They took the card from the post office window. The people up at the big house were getting pressing. Threats, eviction, legal action. Only routes I had, you see. No choice.
So Khan moved in?
Oh, he moved in all right.
Yeah, and,
I did my best for him. At first, I was even glad, just for the sound of another voice about the place. Well, natural, isn't it? Past can be good, but it's funny how eager we all are just to be alive in the present. Any kind of present.
it didn't work out then, huh?
He took over completely. Not just his own room. Completely. His friends from the estate up drinking all the hours God made. No notion about paying the rent. And then, early one morning,
Yeah.
my mother's things, clothes, photographs, the bric-a-brac of a lifetime, really. A pathetic pyre at the bottom of the garden.
You ruddy rot stink, Pops. That's all you got going here. Well then, blind as a rotten mole, maybe, but can't you smell the stench of her, eh? Enough to drive the starlings off the trees, innit? Innit, though, eh? Stink and pus and a maggot-ridden old biddy's garbage. That's all we've got here.
You no right, Con.
No right? Whose bleeding nostrils have they been getting up every hour of the day and night, eh? Got space to expand, you see, Pops. That's what Con needs. I'm never going to get it with this ragbag of mildew clapping up the place now, was he?
You could have asked.
Oh, go on. So it's asking terms we're after now, is it? Yes, sir, no, sir. 3 bags full, sir, now, is it?
If you just asked first, I could have moved them, couldn't I? Somewhere out of your way.
So look at it this way, my dear old mate. Convoy's saving you all that extra trouble, isn't he? Eh? I'll tell you something funny, though. A couple of weeks back, I damn well goes putting myself out trying to sell the stuff.
You tried to sell my mother's.
Well, of course. That shark of a scrap dealer the outside of the village.
You had no right.
Oh, back to rights again, are we?
Done!
Now go easy, Marie. Oh, unless you'd like to join the pyre, that is. Oh, right, old scarecrow you'd make of it. Fancy your Guy Fawkes a bit early then this year, eh, Pops?
They were hers, damn you.
So now they're hers again, ain't they? Ashes to ashes, all that garbage, eh? You should be hanging out the flags, Molly. Really, you should. Doing you a favour, conboys. I mean to say, better than settling for a feast day for them moths now, ain't it? And what about them tarty little cherubs up there, ruddy green with envy when Mumsy gets all this nice new drag through the post?
Why, Con? Why?
Kicks. Pleasure. Yeah. You haven't got a clue in there what I'm getting at, have you? Something you're never going to get round to, Molly. Oh, like tonight, for instance, me and my mates regular old booze up my place, Pops, round about 8. Make yourself a bit scarcish, you will do that, won't you, Molly, with Con doing the asking? Always depend on blind old Molly when it's Con doing the asking? Oh, the fire's nearly out, nothing left to say. You could always try spitting into the wind.
And yet you did nothing.
I could have gone to the police. Should have gone to the police. I see that now. But when you independent on the strength and decisions of others for a whole lifetime, there comes a time when you need so desperately to feel the power of self-assertion, the ability to act. I found a thing to do. Winter was coming. The cottage was fitted for gas. I just got Con a gas fire for his bedroom. Very sensitive to cold was Con. It burned all hours of the day and night, and sometimes he even let it burn while he slept.
So?
One night, I simply turned it off.
Oh, you mean you went into his room and turned it off?
Oh, no, the mains of the downstairs mains.
Well, then?
But then, when the flames had been extinguished, I turned it on again. I blanketed the crack beneath his door, stood there a long time, listening to the hiss of the gas that escaped into the room. Con's sleep, in his drunken stupor, become deeper, ever deeper, till I decided it had enough, sufficient to my purpose.
You mean you gassed him? You murdered him?
Well, that would have been a kind of revenge, but too simple.
Huh?
I hated him. But there's a need beyond the hate. He was quite unconscious when I went into him, as deep unconscious as if he were under anesthetic. Now, underneath the cottage, we had a cellar. In the old times, it had been used for storing apples, vegetables, and now it was quite empty. Its only entrance was through a trap door set into the flags of the kitchen floor, but long hidden by a big chest used for storing firewood. I pulled the chest aside, opened the trap, lowered the body in. The dank smell of damp, the scurry of her hat.
And you left him there?
Well, not at once. No, one more thing to do, you see. To give him a taste of the affliction he'd mocked and made fun of over all these long months. I returned to me mother's neat front parlour. Her work basket was always on a small window table just where I'd left it. A long steel bodkin, the stout thread just right. I returned to the cellar, and there, in the eternal dark, I sewed up his eyes, stitch by stitch, neatly, methodically, upper lid to lower, I sewed up his eyes. And then I left him there.
What happened when the effects of the gas wore off?
Oh, I'd allowed for that. It was to be the final irony. My final irony.
Where am I? It's not my room. What? Light, damn you! Light. There's any lights. It's all dark. My eyes. Hey, but geez, you eyes. Tight closed. Stuck. Tight. Nothing. Tight. Sewn up. No. Help! In the name of Christ, help! Somebody! Out. Out. I must get out. Let me out!
My final irony, my final triumph, in the deep, dank dark. He'd search for the door. He'd search, unseeing, screaming with the searing pain of his sewed-up eyes, groping, panicking round the damp, lichen-covered walls, searching, ever searching for the door that would let him out. Out, to the light, to the help he'd always taken for granted.
Not knowing, not comprehending that there was no door.
That the only way out was not in the walls, but through the trapdoor, not 3 feet above his head. A trapdoor, securely bolted, but weighed down by the heavy oak chest. I left that night. No, I never went back.
But they'd be bound to miss him. I mean, up at the estate.
Over a few days they'd miss him, but he was only a traveling casual labor. They come and went at will. For a few days they'd miss him, then they'd forget. He was only worth forgetting.
The train had stopped at a small halt. The blind man pulled himself to his feet. I opened the door and helped him down onto the deserted platform. For a single brief moment he seemed to study me, and then he raised the opaque blackness of his glasses, and there seemed to be a smile. In the milk-white, clouded eyes, the ghost of a smile. Then he turned and pulled that dirty raincoat even closer about him and tapped his way towards the exit. The tap-tap of his stick mingling with the bird song. We pulled away into that green, bright world of trees and fields beyond.
That was Vincent Price bringing you The Price of Fear, Freddie Jones and Jeffrey Collins. Blind Man's Bluff was first recounted and dramatized by William Ingram and produced by John Dice.
Price of Fear. Brought to you by Vincent Price.
Hello there. Do you own a cat? Or rather, I should say, does a cat own you? Doesn't it strike you as strange that despite centuries of domestication, cats have never really lost their independence, their ruthlessness? To cats, life is still the lore of the jungle. Just try taking liberties with your cat, be he never so tame, and you'll soon be put in your place. I've always had a healthy respect for cats, despite that one time when I was forced to... Oh, but let me tell you about it. I think I'll call the story Cat's Cradle. Several years ago, I was making a movie in Germany, and there was some sort of hold-up during shooting, a tiresome and boring state of affairs that happens all too often. And I found myself with some days on my hands, so I decided to visit some of the beautiful old castles of Bavaria. High on my itinerary was Sonderberg in Franconia, near the Württemberg border. Sonderberg tends to get overlooked by the main tourist trade. Yet it is one of the most complete examples I know of a medieval market town which has survived comparatively intact. I checked in at one of the local hotels late one afternoon, and while they were getting my room ready, I sat down at one of the little tables near the door and ordered a drink, a large tankard of their local beer, actually. At the next table sat a young couple, whispering intently, but their voices were angry and out of control, and as I sat enjoying my beer, it was impossible not to overhear that they were deep in some childish tiff.
Beth, for God's sake, stop talking nonsense.
How dare you say it's nonsense?
It is nonsense, and you know it. I never even looked at the damn woman.
I don't know how you can be so callous. Did you see how disgustingly fat she was?
I tell you, I didn't notice her at all.
Liar.
Oh, shut up.
Oh, God, what a start to married life.
Oh, look, Beth, you're tired. I'm tired. It's all been a strain. Let's not say things we'll be sorry for. Let's have an early night.
The next best thing to your German Hausfrau.
Oh, for the last time, I didn't fancy her. If you're going to carry on like this every time I look at another woman, you'd better tear my ruddy eyes out.
Ah, so now you admit you looked at her.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
The young man glanced uneasily in my direction, obviously wondering if I'd become an involuntary eavesdropper. Of course I had. And I certainly had no intention of making myself scarce. Isn't this a charming town?
Yes, charming.
Delightful.
Are you on vacation?
No.
Yes. That is,
We're on our honeymoon.
Oh, are you? Are you indeed? Well, what an ideal place to spend it.
We haven't exactly succumbed to its charms yet.
We've only just arrived.
Well, give it time. Sonderberg is a step back into the past. It takes a while before its charm begins to work.
It's certainly quiet enough.
I was here once years ago, and I always promised myself a return visit. Then it seemed like an oasis in a desert of insanity.
Yes, I suppose so.
Except, of course, that Sonderberg has had its own fair share of horrors, you know. Oh, that's good. Oh, what delightful beer this is. So refreshing.
Do go on, please.
Well, the castle, do you see it up on that rock?
Yes.
Look through the window there, see?
Oh, yes.
Well, that was taken over as a headquarters for the Inquisition. Oh, the poor wretches who were incarcerated and tortured up there.
I saw the castle as we drove in. It was beautiful, but it made me shudder.
It's not surprising. The Inquisition left several pleasant little mementos, all in as good a state of preservation as Sonderberg itself. You must visit the place while you're here. Well, that is, if you're not squeamish.
Squeamish?
Look, I've got an idea. Why don't we join up and go round the castle together tomorrow?
Well...
Please do. Oh, unless, that is, you're already busy.
Well, no, but...
We'd love it, wouldn't we, Beth?
Yes. Yes, of course we would.
At first, I couldn't understand the young man's enthusiasm. After all, a honeymoon is a honeymoon. Then it struck me that he needed a a defense mechanism, and I would be there to guard him from the kind of row that I'd stumbled upon just now. Well, at any rate, we agreed to meet in the hotel lobby at 10 o'clock in the morning. As events turned out, I needn't have worried about breaking the idyllic atmosphere, because as we were about to set off...
Good God, it can't be. Price, it's you. It really is.
Hello, Malcolm.
Now, what are you doing in this neck of the woods? Don't tell me they forced you out of the rat race at last.
Malcolm Rivers was one of the world's prize bores. If the first prize in a competition were a part in one of Malcolm's movies, the second prize would have been a part in 2 of Malcolm's movies.
Scouting locations, old son. You see that castle up there? That's just right for a new horror picture we've got. I'd love you to read it. It's a great script.
Malcolm, I'm on vacation. Can't we discuss this later, or better still see my agent, huh?
Yeah, but look, just let me tell you.
At this point, our taxi arrived. It was as battered as its driver, but we had all agreed to leave our own transport behind. The trouble was, when Malcolm heard the driver announce that he had come for the castle party, he insisted on coming with us.
Castle? Well, you don't mean to say you're actually going there?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's great. I can actually show you where it all takes place while I'm telling you about it.
Malcolm,
Oh, come on, don't be so coy. You're worse than a virgin on a wedding night.
I just couldn't shake him off. You never could with Malcolm. That's how he'd hustled his way to the top. Now he attached himself to us like an incubus.
The film's all about the Sonderbergs. You know, the family, a sort of pageant of atrocity. I want to step back and look objectively at what each one did. Take Elisa, for instance.
Well, I can't speak for the others. I was doing my best not to listen. The castle, for those who don't know it, is built on an immensely steep rock dominating the town. And on its northern side is surrounded by a moat, which has long since been filled in. At the foot of the wall is a very pleasant garden with little sheltered seats. Sitting there is a good way of recovering from the rather overpowering tour round the castle. The girl was right. There still was a sinister aura clinging to the place, which even a hot and cheerful summer's morning couldn't entirely dissipate.
And they broke in and found the girl strung up by the wrists over the hot coals. Incredible story. Of course, we can't actually put all that into the picture, but we can imply a hell of a lot. You've got to admit it's a damn good commercial plot line. Now, that's why it's so important to get the feel of the place where it happened. We want to get right away from the studio look. Well, they can go out and shoot a police picture in real locations, or why not a horror picture? Now, the seventh count was a real character. This you've got to hear. They say
Mr. Rivers, do you mind if we change the subject?
Huh?
My wife is feeling a bit faint.
That's too bad, Mrs. And we haven't even seen the torture tower yet. Now, say, would your lady wife like to wait for us out here? She could sit down there in the garden.
Oh, no, I don't want to miss anything. I'm quite all right. I think it was probably just that steep hill and the heat.
You go on, Malcolm. We'll catch up with you later.
No, I wouldn't dream of it. Stick together through thick and thin, that's my motto. I know, look at that.
Ah, isn't it sweet? It can't be more than 6 weeks old.
It was a tiny black kitten, which was playing with its mother near one of the seats in the garden just below us. The cat, a great sleek creature whose coat shone in the sun, lay stretched on the grass, and the kitten romped around near her. The mother would wave her tail for the kitten to try to clutch with its paw, or raise her feet to push the little one away as an encouragement to further efforts. It was a charming sight.
Beth has been on to me to buy her a cat as soon as we were married. Now I'll get no peace.
Oh, Jack, I'd like to take them both. I wonder who they belong to.
Oh, they're not strays, and that's for sure. Look at the condition of the mother's coat. Well, they probably belong to the castle.
It'd be great for the picture. Add a touch of atmosphere. Here, Puss.
Oh,
Come on, Puss.
Malcolm, leave them alone. They can't get up the wall anyway. It's far too steep.
Yes, you're right. Oh, look at the size of the mother. We don't grow cats like that in England. Now, wait just a minute. here we are.
What are you doing?
Well, I'll just throw this stone to attract their attention.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. You might hit the kitten.
Oh, not a chance. What do you take me for? I may produce movies, but I'm not all that bad. I'll just aim it so it lands near them. Make them look up. You ever seen the expression on a cat's face when it's startled? Well, watch.
Oh,
no! Oh, God, man, look what you've done.
I never meant to do that.
Maybe the wall wasn't as sheer as it looked. Maybe there was a concealed angle at its base which we couldn't see. Whatever the reason, Malcolm's aim wasn't as true as he thought. I truly believe that he only intended to startle those cats. But when he leaned over the wall and threw the stone, it landed with a sickening thud right on the kitten's head and shattered out its little brains there and then.
Oh, poor thing.
The mother cast a swift upward glance, and I saw her eyes flash like green fire as she stared for an instant at Malcolm Rivers. Then her attention was given to the kitten. After one quiver, it lay still, while a thin red trickle oozed from a gaping wound.
Oh, the poor thing.
Well, I wouldn't have had this happen for the world. I can't understand it.
Beth, darling.
The cat was assiduously licking the kitten's wound, and then suddenly she stopped. She must have realized that it was dead and that her ministrations were useless. For all at once she appeared to lose all interest in the pathetic little body. Instead, she looked again at Rivers, and in that look was all the concentration of primitive hate. Her green eyes blazed, and the blood which dabbled her mouth and whiskers made her look for all the world like an avenging fury. There, Malcolm, I hope you're satisfied. That's something for your horror film. And you have the consolation of knowing it's real blood and not vegetable dye.
Oh, don't rub it in. I feel bad enough as it is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Of course you do.
I love cats. I really do.
Although my outburst was a relief, I felt slightly ashamed. I realized how painfully vulnerable the man really was. I turned my attention to the cat. She was now attempting to claw her way up the wall. When this failed, she tried to launch herself into the air, eyes blazing, claws distended, and then she fell back.
Let's go on. I can't bear any more.
Do you want to go home? We can come back tomorrow.
I think a brandy would do you good. I think a brandy would do us all good.
No, I don't want to go back to the hotel. I want to see the castle. Let's go on.
In face of her obvious determination, there was nothing else we could do. At least the tour would divert her mind, or so we hoped. And we also hoped that Malcolm would be deterred from prattling on about his inane script. But no.
I really expect to pick up some great vibrations in the torture tower. It's just over there. You see, you can't expect to involve your audience unless you're involved yourself. Now, that's the basic rule. You've got to be convinced. And that's why so many movies are just laughable. Nobody is convinced, least of all the makers. I remember one crazy scene. This will kill you. There was this...
As Malcolm laughed, I looked back at the cat. She, too, had heard, and her whole demeanor seemed to change. She no longer tried to jump or run up the wall, but instead began to lick and fondle the dead kitten as if it were alive. Then she took it in her mouth and began to follow us until we reached the limit of the wall's boundary. I thought I was the only one who noticed, but I was wrong.
Mr. Rivers, I know this may sound silly, but I think that cat means to do you harm.
Oh, now that I love. Oh, let's keep a sense of proportion about this. Well, I'm terribly sorry about what happened, but I refuse to avoid dark alleys over a damn cat. Besides, she probably has a litter of others under some bush.
Yes, Beth, I think you're being melodramatic.
Do you?
Look, Beth, are you sure you wouldn't rather call it a day?
Oh, for heaven's sake, stop fussing. I said I was all right, didn't I? Or are you trying to get rid of me?
Oh, now, don't start that again.
All I was trying to do was to give Mr. Rivers a perfectly reasonable warning.
I think all are afraid. Well, here's the tower entrance. Shall we go in? I tried to sound unconcerned, but somewhere in the back of my mind I had a sneaking feeling that the girl was probably right. At first we could see nothing. The darkness seemed incarnate, surrounding, stifling us like a blanket. The four of us just stood there, waiting for the use of our eyes to return. We were in the lower chamber. The thin sunlight, filtering in through a tiny window, seemed to lose itself in the thickness of the walls, which were coated with the dust of centuries. Here and there were patches of dark stain. Only Rivers, naturally, remained comparatively unmoved.
Not much room for cameras down here. Still, I suppose we could manage.
Excuse me, but you are English?
Yes. Well, three of us are.
I think your English are interested in tortures, yes?
Yes.
You would like to see our collection?
Yes.
It's the best in Germany.
Thank you very much. Perhaps you could show us around.
You will follow me, please. You are my first party of the day. The main collection is on the floor above. I think you will find them interesting.
I remembered the wealth of stories about the legendary cruelty of the Counts of Sonderberg, and of course their ladies. It was said that they had found a legitimate outlet for their bloodlusts by channeling them into the service of the officers of the Inquisition.
None of your half measures here. Wow. Look at all that.
Oh, Jack.
We found ourselves in a room full of torture instruments. Chairs full of spikes which gave instant and excruciating pain. Steel cages in which the head could slowly be crushed into a pulp. Racks, belts, boots, gloves, collars, and all around the walls great headsmen's swords, evil, keen-edged weapons that would decapitate with one slash, and nearby blocks where the victims' necks had lain, with deep notches where the steel had bitten through the guard of flesh and shored into the wood. We all found ourselves speechless in the face of this bestial evidence of man's inhumanity to man. All, that is, except Malcolm Rivers.
Unbelievable. Just what we need. It's too good to be true. It really is. You see, it's perfect for a setup just here. It's a question of getting permission to use this stuff, but I wonder what the formalities are. Hey, let me just sit in that chair a moment. Wow.
Rivers was behaving with his usual insensitivity, but there was something more. I think the others shared the feeling with me that it was sacrilegious. An odd word to use, I know, but there was something sacred about the place. It was a temple, but a temple to evil.
Now, over here, sirs and madam, is a famous instrument of the Inquisition. One might almost say the most famous, and still in perfect working order.
The old man pointed to the main object in this chamber of horrors, the Iron Virgin, a copy of the famous one at Nuremberg. The contraption was covered in rust and dust, except for the face, which was oddly fresh-looking, as if the custodian had scrubbed it. While the figure was curved in the shape of a woman, it was just broad enough for a man to fit inside, as we could see when the door was opened. The door itself was enormously thick and was worked open and shut by a thick chain running through a pulley attached to a heavy beam in the roof. When the weight was released, the door would slam shut. The devilish nature of the Iron Virgin was truly revealed when you examined the inside of the door. A number of iron spikes were fixed there, and when the victim was placed inside it and the door closed, the upper spikes would pierce his eyes and the lower ones his heart and vitals.
What a charming toy.
Oh, God, look at the bloodstains.
It's hard to wash out blood completely, man. And there are some who say it comes back anyway.
I think I can believe this place is haunted.
And on that happy note, I vote that we make a hurried exit.
That suits me.
Well, let's go and have that drink we promised ourselves, shall we? Right now.
No, wait.
What's up this time, for God's sake?
Hey, you, old man. Now, how big is that space?
What, sir?
The space inside. I want to see if I can get in.
Oh.
Well, I told you, I'd like sampling new experiences.
Now, Malcolm, realism is one thing.
Nonsense. Courage of your convictions and all that. Now, come on, Squire. I need your help on this.
Very good, sir, if you insist.
You're not serious.
Well, sure I am. That's a tight fit. We've grown some since those days. But I'll manage. Here. See?
You are not really allowed to do this, sir. If anyone found out, I might get into trouble.
Why should anyone find out?
I might even lose my job.
Okay, I get you. Price, give him something, will you?
Oh, well,
I'll settle with you later.
I think this is all very silly.
All in the cause of art.
Well, I, for one, won't go and see his beastly film.
That, my dear, makes two of us.
Hey, what's all the whispering about?
Oh, here you are. 2, 4, 6.
Thank you, sir. Oh, thank you, sir.
Do you think that will square your conscience?
Oh, yes, sir. I think that squares it very nicely.
And now that you've had your little game, can we all go?
Go if you like. I'm not stopping you. I'm staying here.
Oh, come on, Malcolm.
Malcolm, nothing. I'm really enjoying this. Live dangerously. That's my motto. All right, Charlie, now unfasten the door.
But, sir...
Can't somebody stop
Malcolm, you've had your little joke, but enough is enough.
Enough hell. You, Charlie, do as I tell you. Now start letting that door down. But slowly. Very, very slowly.
Despite his reluctance, the old man did as he was told. He worked the machine with a deliberate and excruciating slowness in which the outer edge of the door hadn't moved half 5 inches in as many minutes. The whole ridiculous charade had a kind of macabre thrill about it. It was a scene from Malcolm's horror film played exclusively for our benefit. And then I saw her. The cat. I don't think the others noticed at first. They were too intent on watching the progress of that door. Even Rivers had ceased to chatter. In the far corner of the chamber, dark, untamable forces were gathering. Her green, baleful eyes shone like danger lamps, and as I peered at her, I could see that their color was heightened by the blood which still smeared her coat and reddened her mouth. And still, slowly, inexorably, with the precision of an expert, the old man went on working that door. Even then, I wasn't sure what the animal intended to do, or even if she intended to do anything, until suddenly... The cat! Look out for the cat! The cat launched herself, not at Malcolm, but at the luckless custodian. Her eyes blazed with ferocity. Her hair bristled till she seemed twice her normal size. Her tail lashed out like a tiger's when the quarry is before it. The cat's claws found one of his eyes, and I actually saw her tear through it and down his cheek, leaving wide bands of red where the blood seemed to spurt from every vein.
Oh, Jack! Oh, God!
Look out! He can't hold it!
With a yell of agony and terror, the man leapt back, dropping the chain which held back the door. It ran like lightning through the pulley block, and the massive door slammed shut. In the instant before the door had closed, I saw Malcolm's face. His eyes stared as if dazed, and for once in his life, he was speechless. Jack, help me get the door open. For God's sake, help me.
I'm coming. Beth, stay where you are. For God's sake, don't look.
The end must have been quick, for when we managed to wrench the door open, the spikes had done their work. They had pierced right through the skull, so that as the door opened, the body came with it, and he fell to the floor, face turned upwards. Get your wife out of here. She needs air. I'll attend to the old man.
Right.
The old custodian was leaning against the wooden pillar, holding his reddening handkerchief to his eyes, while on the face of poor Rivers, there sat the cat, purring loudly as she licked the blood which trickled through the gashed sockets of his eyes. I pushed her away from her ghoulish meal, and, well, I hope no one will call me cruel, because I seized one of the old executioner's swords from its rack on the wall, and with one slash, shore her in two on the spot. Poor Malcolm. He'd had his total experience, a good deal more total than he'd bargained for. Cozy, wasn't it? You see what I mean about cats? You never can tell.
That was Vincent Price, bringing you The Price of Fear. Also starring in this story, Cat's Cradle, were Kenneth J. Warren and Frederick Schrecker, with John Sampson and Bonnie Harron. Cat's Cradle was first recounted as The Score by Bram Stoker, dramatized by Richard Davis, and produced by John Dias. The Price of Fear, brought to you by Vincent Price.
My little story for this week I want to call Come As You Are. You know, that meaningless concession that gets added onto invitations to a party? You see, it's because the endless business of dressing up is such an integral part of my professional life that among my friends, my very positive reluctance to attend any kind of fancy dress party or costume ball is not only well established, but understandingly accepted. On a recent trip to London, I was genuinely delighted to find an invitation from my old friend Charles Vane awaiting my arrival. It wasn't until I'd reached that key and, to me, ominous phrase, "fancy dress will be worn," that my heart sank. The fact that my would-be host had crossed it through and substituted the words, "come as you are," afforded little by way of consolation. There can be few experiences so desultory as to find oneself sober-suited in the midst of a determined company of let's pretend Casanovas, paunchy Tarzans, and moth-eaten King Kongs. As I put Charles's invitation back in its envelope, I'd already instinctively decided to decline. But even as I mailed my politely phrased refusal to his kind invitation, I had the distinct feeling that I was not to be let off the hook so lightly. The 2 a.m. phone call confirmed my misgivings. Hello.
Vincent, it's damn well not good enough, do you hear?
What? Oh, I'm sorry. Who is that?
It's not only not good enough, I'm damn well not going to take no for an answer.
Charles. Oh, Charles, is that you?
Surprise, surprise. Of course it's Charles. If Mohammed won't go to the mountain needs must. Anyway, who the hell else did you expect it to be?
Well, believe it or not, old thing, there are alternatives. Parents, relatives, friends, acquaintances. Oh, you'd be surprised.
Oh, would I? Well, I just hope you're not in the habit of treating them in the same shoddy fashion, that's all.
Charles, delighted as I am to hear from you, you know it is the middle of the night.
Wrong again, Vincent, the early hours of the morning. But what's that got to do with anything?
Nothing at all, except that we mere mortals do rather count on a certain quota of sleep.
Mere mortals bore me.
Oh, yes, it slipped my mind. Please forgive the lapse.
I'm forgiving you damn all. Are you still there?
Still here?
It's on account of that damn stupid fancy dress bit, isn't it? So why do you think I changed it to come as you are in the first place?
Out of the question. The intimacies of my sleeping attire must remain a closely guarded secret.
Don't be skittish. In a way, all I hope is you had sufficient sense to keep the damn thing.
The invitation?
Yes, of course the invitation is what you're keeping me from my beauty sleep about.
I'm keeping you?
Yes, well, on the back you'll find a simple set of directions for getting here.
Oh.
A child of 5 could manage it. I've marked the Priory with a damn big cross in the top right-hand corner.
The Priory?
The house, my house. You will love it.
Oh, yes, I'm sure I would, Charles. But as a matter of fact, I have another appointment. A scriptwriter friend of mine is
To hell
coming...
with all scribblers. I shall expect you at 8.
But, Charles, I honestly don't see how
Will
I can...
you let me get some sleep, damn you?
Charles, are you there? Charles! Charles? Oh. Put to the test, Charles's simple set of directions might well have been comprehensible to a 5-year-old child. But not having one of them with me in the passenger seat, I spent hours exploring the same piece of countryside in ever-decreasing circles. I was just on the point of returning to London when I spotted the entrance to his drive. And within minutes, I was standing in the hall of one of the most remarkably beautiful houses it has ever been my pleasure to enter. The party was obviously in full swing.
Ah, there you are. Let the festivities commence. Vincent, you're late, damn it.
Oh, Charles, how good to see you.
I've been ringing that ridiculous hotel of yours for the best part of the evening.
What?
Thought you'd gone and funked out at the last minute.
Oh, I am sorry about that. Your directions weren't as explicit as you cracked them up to be.
Huh?
As a matter of fact, as a cartographer, your talents seem to be singularly lacking.
Nonsense. If Columbus had had me aboard, he'd have found the New World there one hell of a lot sooner than he did. Anyway, seeing as how you finally made it, come along into the library.
All right.
We'll fortify ourselves with a brandy or 3 before I introduce you to the somewhat dubious delights of the snake pit.
All right.
There you go, then.
Bye. Oh, I am sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, you're miles away.
Yes, I'm just taking it all in.
The house? Yeah, impressive, isn't it?
Beautiful, Charles.
Cost me a pretty packet, I can tell you.
Really beautiful.
Point taken. Yeah, you're quite right, of course. The heathen financier in me. Always been under the impression they amounted to much the same thing. Anyway, here's to it.
And to your health and to your house. Tell me about it.
The Priory? Well, don't expect me to go into the full historic bit. But for all that, mentioned in the Doomsday, one of the gems of early English monastic architecture, you know the kind of thing.
Well, I'm more than prepared to believe it.
Yeah, the domestic conversions came later, but it's still pretty exceptional. Anyway, I first fell in love with the place about 5 years back when I was a guest here at a party.
Oh?
A rather bizarre junket given by the wife of the then owner.
Oh, I see.
Well, I think she realized I rather coveted the place from the word go. And last season we met up again in the south of France. She told me her lifestyle had changed somewhat since our last meeting, and judging by the bevy of young Apollos she had in tow, I was more than prepared to believe it. Well, I eventually got round to the house, and she said that providing the figure was right, the place was mine for the asking.
Well, it obviously was, then.
Let's just say the contract was concluded to the mutual satisfaction of both parties, shall we?
You're the same old Charles.
So, here we are. 9 months later, and it's housewarming night on the old corral.
Thank you. Are you, thinking of settling here?
Nothing shorter. You look skeptical.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
My eye.
Well, you do have something of a reputation to live down, you know.
Well, you must give me 5 marks for effort, at the very least. I've already got so far as settling into the place, even hired a genuine English butler and a stable of splendid hunters. Yeah, every reason to be proud of my new country gentleman image, don't you think?
Well, all you need now is a genuine English rose to complete the picture.
I'm working on it.
You being serious?
I am. The question is she?
Oh, am I to meet her tonight?
Oh, my dear fellow, here tonight, her blue-blooded parents would have 40 blue-blooded fits.
Oh, then this is something of a last fling.
Let's just settle for the last but one, shall we?
All right, if you prefer.
I most certainly do. Right, let's be having you then. My lords, ladies, and gentlemen, welcome to the Snake Pit.
My original misgivings about accepting Charles's invitation proved well justified. Along with the disguises I'd anticipated, in a matter of minutes I'd been introduced to a somewhat bibulous archbishop, an emaciated Theda Barra on the decline, and the oldest bunny girl in the business. Charles's come-as-you-are concession proved a somewhat dubious advantage. My conventional business suit seemed to generate the same degree of cool hostility as if I'd elected to wear it at a convention of nudists. It was with a very positive feeling of relief that I eventually escaped the throng and sought out some corner strategically removed from the general merrymaking. The minstrel's gallery seemed perfect. Suitably fortified with a private bottle of Charles's excellent Dom Clicquot, I climbed to my remote perch as eagerly as any canary in its gilded cage, a positive refuge where I could ponder the idiot antics of my fellow man and consider myself well out of it.
And so you are, old fellow, so you are. Well out of it.
In the gloom of the gallery, I'd almost stumbled over the man. I managed a rather startled apology, but even when my eyes had grown accustomed to the darkness, the details of his physical appearance remained extremely vague. The quality of his voice, the spare, angular outline of the silhouette he presented, suggested someone of middle age, but then he could just as well have been a great deal older. Only for the briefest of instants was I positively aware of his pale, watery eyes, opaque behind the glint of his old-fashioned pince-nez.
I hope I didn't startle you.
Well, somewhat, I must confess. I didn't realize I was intruding.
A temporary refuge from the madding crowd, eh?
Yes, I know it must seem ungracious.
Oh, to some it might. For my own part, well, given the option, I'd have been abed and asleep hours ago. Oh, won't you take a seat?
Oh, thank you so much. Allow me to introduce
On these occasions, formal introductions always strike me as superfluous. On top of which, I can't offer my hand.
Oh?
A somewhat unfortunate accident.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. If I were to fetch another glass...
Oh, it doesn't agree with me. But why don't you?
Oh, thank you.
I'm glad to observe that one of us, at least, had the courage to refuse being bullied into dressing the part.
Fancy dress. As in some ways it might have been easier to oblige.
The proverbial sore thumb, eh?
Yeah.
In my own case, well, there was little option.
Oh?
My wife, you know.
Huh?
She positively revels in this kind of revel. But possibly you've already observed her. Titania in all her glory.
Oh, yes. Yes, as a matter of fact, I have.
It would be difficult not to.
Well, extremely effective.
Ridiculously pathetic.
What?
I can think of few sights so ludicrously tragic as a middle-aged siren aping the appearance and manners of a young girl half her age. Do I embarrass you?
Well,
Oh, you must forgive me, but her penchant for youth is so notorious. I now feel little reluctance to talk about it. Her companion this evening, for instance.
Oh, you mean the young man in the costume
You
of
have
Harlequin?
him.
Yeah.
Though the appurtenances of a gigolo might have been more appropriate.
Oh?
Her darling boy of the moment, Luigi del Potrello. The name means nothing to you?
Del Potrello. Oh, yes, it does sound familiar.
In most circles it has a certain notoriety. The Potrellos are Italian merchants.
Oh, yes.
Extremely wealthy, hideously flamboyant, and totally without any distinction, taste, or breeding. Right from the outset, my home seemed in a perpetual state of siege. billets-doux by every post, secret assignations, ridiculously extravagant floral arrangements. And then the ultimate indignity of having the scoundrel pay court under my very roof. To be made constantly aware of their asinine sniggerings, their barely concealed whisperings, their grotesque fondlings, the middle-aged lovebird and her twittering young chick. But it wasn't until he started implanting his obscene influence on the house itself that my anger and frustration reached full spate.
How obscene.
Yes, obscene. Isn't it extraordinary how something as seemingly insignificant as a mirror can underline the absolute bathos of one's situation? Underline it with far greater emphasis than any of the indignities and infidelities that have gone before.
Well, I'm not sure that I understand. You did say a mirror?
Yes, one of his many gifts to her. A hideously ornate creation in the fashionable Florentine manner. You know the kind of thing. All gilt cupids, intricately entwined vine leaves.
Yes, I'm afraid I do.
Exactly, my dear fellow. Needless to say, quite out of keeping with the sober antiquity of my own furnishings. But a token of regard from her own darling boy, don't you see? And as such, to be blatantly hung in a place of honor. It seemed suddenly as if he were trying to destroy the very fabric of our lives.
Would it be impertinent of me to inquire?
What happened?
Yes.
No, but why not? It's probably common knowledge. The inevitable scene is the phrase that most readily springs to mind. But somehow more significant than anything that had gone before.
Oh, you're exaggerating as usual.
I honestly don't think you realize
The gravity of the situation. Oh, come on, darling, say it. You can always be relied upon to trot out the obvious on these tedious occasions, can't you, my pet?
The occasion, as you choose to call it, might be a good deal graver than you think.
Oh, now you're beginning to sound much more like the old dodderer you really are. Well, come on, darling, don't stop now. It's the well-known visit to the headmaster you had in mind, isn't it? If so, you are achieving it to perfection. The darling boy really has excelled himself this time, hasn't he? Such an appropriate gift. A direct invitation to see yourself as you really are.
So why the hell don't you tell your darling boy he can take his bloody mirror right back where it came from?
We'll have to see, won't we, my pet?
And was the mirror taken back?
I presumed it must have been. I certainly don't recall seeing the damn thing again. But then, quite suddenly, that's to say, we both had more important things on our minds.
Oh?
I'd spent the day at the British Museum doing some research. I got home to find my wife had been taken seriously ill. In effect, a minor heart attack. I could only conclude it was a direct result of trying to keep up with her dissolute gadfly. The doctor advised that complete rest was absolutely essential. He also emphasized that there must be no undue excitement or shock. Yes, he particularly stressed the last bit, or shock. Even as he said it, it sounded strangely significant.
Why significant?
Well, as it turned out, I'd stayed up reading very late one night. I must have dozed off, because I was suddenly startled awake by a noise. It came from the head of the stairs.
What kind of a noise?
Difficult to describe, but a sort of bump, I suppose. A slight trip, perhaps. The servants had retired hours before. There was only my wife. At least, I believed that to be the case. Until I heard their voices coming from my wife's bedroom. I recognized Luigi's laughter immediately. Then, after a while, there was only silence. I think that silence was the most difficult thing to bear of all. For the first time, I admitted to myself that I had lost my wife to Luigi forever.
And your reaction?
How can one describe? Resignation, love, jealousy, hate, all at the same time. I wanted her dead.
What?
I needed her dead, but had no notion how I could achieve it. I'm not a courageous man, not even an artful man. I returned to the study. And there, I saw something that seemed to suggest the perfect solution.
Yes, go on.
Shortly before her illness, I'd drawn my wife's attention to a book dealing with the medieval history of the house.
Yes.
Oh, needless to say, she discarded it halfway through, but there was one particular section that not only claimed her interest, but held it in a state of shocked disbelief I'd never witnessed before. It concerned a ghost.
A ghost?
Most historic homes seem to lay claim to one. Knowing my wife's somewhat nervous disposition, I'd previously kept ours something of a closely guarded secret. But now, no undue excitement or shock was what the doctor had said. There and then, I determined my ghostly inhabitant should serve his turn.
Well, what kind of a ghost?
The ghost of a Franciscan friar. The costume wasn't too difficult to improvise. A burnous, one of those Arab night-dress affairs, complete with hood, served my purpose to perfection. I put it on, lit a candle, left my study. I crossed the hall. The stairs creaked as I began to climb. I didn't mind. It only added to the theatricality of the scene I was about to enact. I could already imagine slowly opening the door of my wife's bedroom. Hear her call out, "Who's there?" See the expression on her face as she watched in terror the spectre of the Franciscan friar loom towards her. Perhaps one brief, terrified scream. And then I just reached the top of the stairs, was about to cross the landing, when I saw it. The actual spectre there, confronting me. The face shrouded in its hood, the candle flickering in its hand, the eyes deeply socketed, stared accusingly into mine. For a long moment there was only disbelief at what I saw. And then panic. I tried to move, but couldn't. I tried to scream out, but no voice came. Then, with a newfound volition of its own, my arm lashed out with the heavy brass candlestick I was holding, lashed out at the ghastliness of that grizzled face. God help me. In the name of Christ, somebody help me.
For God's sake, man.
Oh, my God, Charles. Charles.
What the devil do you mean by slinking off like that?
I'm sorry.
Well?
I turned towards my distraught storyteller, but he was gone, probably realizing he was in imminent danger of being forced back into the swinging multitude below.
Oh, come along, man. Don't just hang around in the gloom. There's somebody special I want you to meet.
From the far end of the library, Titania herself confronted me. She sat there enthroned in one of Charles's splendid high-backed chairs.
Captain of our fairy band, mortals, darlings, close at hand.
As she misquoted from the bard, Titania made very short work of a very large brandy. In view of my so recent conversation with her husband, I must have looked somewhat taken aback. She was not slow to notice the fact.
Something worrying you, darling.
Well...
Charles, be a dear. Titania's running low on nectar. Well, darling, you were saying...
Well, I do apologize. It's pure coincidence, of course, but I've had the pleasure of making your husband's acquaintance.
My husband?
Yes.
You did say my husband?
Yes.
Oh, damn you, Charles. You haven't gone and told every Tom, Dick, and Harry my little secret. You know I particularly asked you to keep it strictly entre nous. Luigi would be furious.
Luigi? But that isn't your husband.
Oh, what a damn fool I am. Now I've gone and let the cat out of the bag. You must have been referring to that dreadful old dodderer I was imbecile enough to spend the best years of my life with.
Now, darling, we mustn't speak ill of the dead.
The dead?
Thank God. The best part of 2 years, isn't it, Charles? Even at the very end, the old dodderer proved as parsimonious and mean-minded as he'd been all along. Still, he paid for it. One of the few comforting things in life is that one can always depend on getting exactly what one deserves.
Or deserving exactly what one gets.
Oh, Charles, darling, you are being cynical. Anyway, I must away. Luigi has gone missing, don't you know? It isn't that I don't trust the darling boy, darling. It's simply that I don't. Goodbye, Mr.
Goodbye.
Charles, darling. Oh, it's been bliss. But Titania, darlings, must away to live and fight another day.
What the hell was all that about?
Charles, tell me about him, her late husband.
Edward.
Was that his name?
Well, I only met the old stick once, and then very briefly, on my first visit to the place.
This place?
Well, of course, this was his house. He died here.
Where? Where exactly did he die?
You know, you look really peaky.
Answer the question, for God's sake. Please, Charles.
Well, as a matter of fact, at the head of the stairs.
The stairs leading to the minstrel's gallery?
Yes.
And the circumstances?
Oh, a bit unusual, really. It was Helen who found him. Apparently the old fool was on his way to bed, all got up in this ridiculous dressing gown thing of his, when he spots this mirror.
The mirror? At the head of the stairs? It was Luigi's mirror, wasn't it?
Oh, was darling boy been telling you all about that?
Wasn't it?
Yes, a gift to Helen. The old boy raised such a stink about it, she locked it away at the back of a cupboard. Anyway, one night, after a somewhat torrid meeting with her darling boy, Luigi raises Cain and insists on hanging it out in the open.
Directly at the top of the stairs, so that anyone coming up them would be bound to see his own reflection, wouldn't he?
Which is exactly what happened. Edward spots it, loses his temper, and smashes the thing to smithereens. Yeah, it was that caused the heart attack, of course. Not to mention his hand.
What about his hand?
Well, severed. Quite severed. Extraordinary the violence that can be generated through a fit of jealousy, isn't it? I wish you'd have another brandy.
Will you tell me what he looked like, Charles?
Oh, Edward? Oh, do even better.
Charles handed me a snapshot. It was faded, but I spotted him immediately. One face among many, but I'd have recognized it anywhere. Not because of any particular feature, but because there, staring out at me, were the same pale, watery eyes, opaque behind the glint of his old-fashioned pince-nez. I handed the photograph back.
Oh, thanks. But might as well get rid of it.
Oh.
Not much point dwelling on the dead, is there?
No. Not much. Charles invited me to stay the night. I automatically refused. Some weeks later, he suggested we meet up again before he left on a business trip to the continent. The Priory was again suggested as a rendezvous. But in view of what had gone before, at the very last minute, I switched it to my hotel dining room instead. The decor hideously modern, the food bad, the waiters rude, the place positively bulging with people. I wouldn't have had it any other way.
That was Vincent Price, bringing you The Price of Fear. Co-starring in Come As You Are was Maurice Perry, with Betty Huntley-Wright and Peter Williams. Come As You Are was first recounted and dramatized by Bill Ingram and produced by John Dyers.
Vincent Price presents Maurice Denham and Liz Fraser in The Family Album by William Ingram. Vincent Price.
Hello and welcome. Meet my friend Arthur Goodby. Arthur is your ordinary, very ordinary man. The kind of man one simply passes in the street. The kind of man at a ticket barrier one squeezes past and perhaps ever so gently curses at. Such a man is Arthur Goodby. Only a few very intimates are even aware of his existence, and yet, in his home life, even this ordinary, very ordinary man has his hidden depths. Depths too deep to fathom.
Well, to my man's liking, was it?
First class. Hope you haven't robbed your Arthur, though.
You let me worry about my Arthur. Well, say thank you nicely, then.
I just did.
Nicely was what I said.
Rose.
I see. Right back, is it?
Oh, don't start, Rose.
Should have known what I was letting myself in for right from the start. Oh, everything in the garden when you first moved in here.
Your invitation.
At Arthur's invitation. Poor, simple, good-natured Arthur, eh? Rose, meet my good friend Harry, one of the very best, but presently without a roof over his head, and with that spare room of ours just collecting cobwebs.
Well, I was very grateful to Arthur.
I bet you were. But I wonder how grateful Arthur would be if it ever got out that that spare room wasn't the only thing that took his young friend's fancy.
What?
He may seem simple, but I shouldn't count on his good nature running to that extent.
You wouldn't dare.
Who said anything about daring? Not a word from these lips, I should hope. Not a single little word.
Rose, he could walk through that door any minute.
Oh, not a chance.
Oh, for God's sake.
Friday night, isn't it? So, always an hour later of a Friday. His usual little stop-off, it is Mr. Martin.
Oh, I was forgetting.
Creature of habit, my Arthur.
Thank God for creatures of habit.
Oh.
Mr. Martin? Oh, are you there? Anyone at home? Come in. Come in. Ah, there you are, my good friend.
Yeah, I hope it's not inconvenient.
No. I have just about given you up, though.
Oh, the rush hour, I'm afraid, even worse than usual. You're a lucky man not to know it firsthand.
Oh, I know I am. Just me and my shop, and as many beautiful reminders of the past as I can afford to lay my hands on. And I know which particular beauty brought you visiting. You spotted it in the window, eh?
Yes, but the reserve tag is...
You, my good friend, who else?
Ah.
Who else but my good friend, Mr. Goodby, shall have first refusal.
Well, that's very kind.
Let me show you. A large country house sale this very morning. And so I say to myself, as fine a family album as you've ever likely to see. Well, a beauty, eh?
Ah, beautiful.
You feel the weight. There.
Ah, yes.
Real gilt lettering on the hand-tooled leather.
Family album.
Craftsmanship, eh? You see the solid brass cloth?
Yes.
That's to keep out the nosy body intruders.
Oh, may I look inside?
For you, I think I can make the exception.
Oh, the family album of
William James Willoughby. And so it's only fitting his photograph should have pride of place. Yes, how proud he looks. Fine figure of a man, yes. Dressed for the hunt. You understand? Shotgun, crooked in his arm. Yes, like he'd put a bullet into anybody that dared to venture further. Oh. And then just empty pages. Yes. Seems those nosy body intruders got their way after all. As you say. Well, what can I say? Just what you'd set your heart on for so long. Oh, certainly that. Your turn. Knock down price. Oh, well, that's very good of you. I tell you what. You take it with you now and work out what you think it's worth. And then drop the money in next time you're passing. Well, if you're sure. No trust between old friends. No trust at all. Besides, high time to put the shutters up. And your lovely wife at home waiting your return. Dinner waiting to be served. Slippers by the hearth. If you'll allow an old bachelor the liberty of saying so. A man to be envied. Oh, yes, Mr. Martin. I suppose most people would consider me a very lucky man. Good night. Yes, well, I think it's very nice, Arthur. Something, well, a bit different. Know what I mean?
Leave it, Harry, for God's sake. Make enough of an idiot of himself without you trying to put him in the right.
Sorry?
Talk about a load of rubbish.
Well, I just took a fancy to it.
I bet you did. No wonder old Martin keeps that junk shop of his open every Friday night till God knows what hour. Bet his face lights up every time his shop bell tings.
I never quite considered it in that light, dear.
Considered? What? Considered is the last thing that comes into it from where I'm standing. Pass us your plate.
I suppose I could always take it back.
You can do what you bloody like, Sonny Jim. Either that or it's down that shed with the rest of the rubbish. One thing's for sure, you're not catching me giving it house room.
I see. It's a lovely bit of craftsmanship, Rose.
And the last thing I need is you ganging up on me.
Martin?
Then don't. Morbid, I call it. Family album. But minus the family, it would seem.
Well, I had thought, well, we could always start taking some of our own.
Oh, no. Not watch the birdie time again. Do you know, Harry, last time he tried that paper, he spent a fortune on snaps that either didn't turn out or looked as if they'd been taken down the wrong end of a telescope. Morbid is what I called it. My final word on the matter. Well, if you've quite finished, I'll make a start with the washing up.
No, I'll give you a hand.
As you like.
No, not yet.
No?
Something, I've got something to tell you.
Not two surprises in one night. You know Harry's got a weak heart. He'll never stand it.
Go on then, Arthur. Well, I've got me well, that's to say, I've got us a car. A car?
I don't believe it. I honestly don't.
A car, Arthur, but no, nothing special. Not new, but not that old neither. Oh, yeah? Yeah, just a little runabout. But you can't even drive, Arthur.
Right. The old fool's as blind as a bat. Have us up the nearest tree before we got as far as the corner.
Harry can, though. Me? Well, you want me to go along with you? Well, yes, Harry, of course. Did you think different? Now, trips, you see, trips. Just the three of us, a regular family outing, eh? Oh, yes. I'm sure we'd all enjoy that.
And Arthur was right about that, though they must have appeared a somewhat odd threesome. Poor Arthur, relegated to the back seat, Rose, head-scarved and bubbling up front, and young Harry at the wheel, showing off a bit like any kid on the fairground bumpers. Young Harry. But quite old enough to know better. Oh, it all seemed a very civilized arrangement in theory, anyway. The most cordial of relationships, with Rose always at the center, a feeling of sharing, each after their fashion, some prized possession. They never referred to it directly, of course. Nothing is blunt. It was enough to bask in the secret knowledge of it, like the sun and the sea on that warm summer's day.
Arthur, she's waving.
What?
Well, Rose, look, can you spot her?
No, I can't say.
Here, have a go with the glasses.
Oh.
No. More to the right. Hey, she must be halfway to the point, for God's sake.
Ah, so she is. She's waving. Well, wave back then. She'll expect you to wave back. That's right. Coffee?
Oh, so, what the hell did she want to go all that way for?
Out of her depths, eh? Quite right, young Harry. You should never get out of your depths. Anyway, panic over. She's swimming back now.
Oh, thank God for that.
Worries, were we? Oh, you must never worry, Harry. Not as far as my Rose is concerned. Never pays to worry.
Well, if you say so.
Oh, I do. Well, should know her by now, I should hope. Should know my own wife by now, eh? After so many years. As a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Anyway, you must know pretty well all there is to know about Rose and me by now.
Well,
ups and downs, young Harry. The difference in age. Bound to happen, wouldn't you say?
Well, if you say so.
Oh, I do. You take my word for it. Still, knew what I was letting myself in for when I popped the question. She took a bit of persuading, I can tell you. Well, if you look at it from Rosie's point of view, not much on offer. Not much to write home about, as the saying goes. Some sort of blessing in the bank, regular job, prospects even, if I played my cards right, eh? But never a great one for card playing, young Harry. Not enough skill, but short of deception. Now, much better stick to your limits, leave the high stakes for them that can afford them, eh? Wouldn't you agree, young Harry?
Oh, tuck us a towel, one of you, I'm frozen.
Ah, that's my old Roseback. Quite the mermaid, eh?
Hope you haven't seen all the coffee off.
You'll pour it for her, will you, Harry? I'd like to get a snapshot when she thinks we're not looking.
Okay. Lovely when you get in. God only knows what state my hair's going to be in.
Rose here, watch the birdie. Got you.
Oh, bloody hell. Just another one for that damned family album.
And another for the album it was. There were many, many more other ones. Rose sometimes prinking and preening straight into the lens, sometimes deliberately pouting away from the shutter. Harry beside her, his expression seldom changing, pleasant but set, resigned. Almost part of the furniture. As for Arthur clicked away quite merrily, regardless of mood or circumstance. But the surprising thing was, he never showed them the result. If badgered, he'd just shrug it off and smile.
Patience. When the great day dawns and my album is complete, you shall be the first invited to its unveiling.
In the weeks that followed, Arthur's shed became a kind of refuge. This increasing absence from hearth and home, if noted at all, caused neither concern or comment. It was as he wanted it.
Arthur, you in there?
Is Rose with you?
Oh, no, somebody else. Breaking out about our supper's getting cold. Arthur?
No, just a minute. I'll let you in.
Blimey. Talk about the Bank of England.
Well, just in case vandals.
Yeah. So, what particular interest kept you burning the midnight oil tonight?
No, nothing in particular. I was just...
No. No need to explain, old mate. See for myself. Well. Another session on the old family album, eh? Catching up on the Rogues Gallery. Anywhere near publication date, are we? How about a bit of a preview, eh?
I'd rather you didn't.
Oh, just a little, please.
No, please.
Oh, be a sport. Not a word to Rose, promise.
As you please.
Well, indeed.
Yeah, I did warn you they weren't.
See, you're still letting Squire, William, James, Willoughby keep his pride of place at the front.
It is his album.
Was?
Seemed a pity to disturb it.
Oh, as you say. Well, gets better as you go on. But, well, got to admit, made a bit of a botch of these early ones, Arthur, mate. Double exposure. No. Well, it's something to do with the printing. If I were you...
I developed them myself.
Could explain it. No offence.
Look closer. Touch it.
Ooh. Take your point. Unpleasant. A bit like
fungus.
Yeah, fungus. But only on these early ones, eh?
So far.
You see me up here on this shelf, do you?
Just where you're looking.
Oh, explains it then, doesn't it? You got damp up there, Arthur, old mate.
Damp? But
wrap it in newspaper, tuck it away in a cupboard. That should do the trick.
You really think so?
Sure so.
Harry! Arthur! Where the devil have you both got to?
Just coming! Oh, Harry, no need to let Rose in on all this. It's still supposed to come as a nice surprise.
Mum's the word, old mate. Mum is the word.
Thank you.
The last little outing they ever took was a visit to a bird sanctuary. As a matter of fact, it was Arthur's idea, though it seemed an obvious choice. Besides, the seclusion of the place was bound to have its advantages. Daffy old Arthur could plod off with his government surplus binoculars to spy on his feathered friends, leaving her with Harry and more personal intimacy. It preoccupied them. In fact, it wasn't until early evening they began to think something might be up.
Well, Your Honour, we called and called for it, but no joy.
Joy?
Results, Your Honour.
This is a coroner's inquiry, Mr. Blake, not a court of law.
Your Honour?
There will suffice.
Oh, yes, sir.
So, then what did you do?
Well, we thought after, Mr. Goodby might be playing a lark on us at first.
A lark?
Well, just at first. And then we went looking, didn't we? Though God knows, heaven knows, what chance we thought we had. I mean, all that undergrowth, reeds, not to mention the lake.
You could find no trace, then?
No, sir.
No sight, no sound out of the ordinary?
Nothing at all. Except for...
For what?
Gunshots. One right after the other. A double-barrel shotgun.
Are you sure of that?
Not sure. Far from it. It's just the way it sounded. But as Rose, Mrs. Goodby said, not very likely.
Oh?
Well, it's not the kind of thing you'd expect in a bird sanctuary, is it? Not the kind of thing at all.
Please continue.
Nothing else. By then it was nearly dark. There's nothing more we could do on our own. So we got to the nearest telephone and called the police.
You may return to your seat.
Your Honour.
Therefore, having given due and careful consideration to the evidence concerning the sudden, unexplained disappearance of the said Arthur William Goodby, and in view of the fact that no remains had ever been recovered, or evidence to suggest intent or willful act of malice, I shall herewith return an open verdict, but not totally dismissing the inherent possibility of death by misadventure. This coroner's court is adjourned.
Poor, tragic Rose. But, dear listener, I'm sure you can well imagine the scene.
The most wonderful of husbands in the whole wide world.
Yes, sir.
Nothing I wouldn't have done for my Arthur. You know that.
Of course, Rose.
He'll have left me the lot, of course, you'll see. Nothing but the very best for my Rose. A number of times I've heard him say that. And now that he's gone, stands to reason. Well, great expectations time, eh, Harry love?
Great expectations.
But the mutual expectations proved short-lived. Rose was right about copying the lot, of course. But she certainly hadn't bargained on a recent hefty mortgage Arthur had saddled her with. His bank account also seemed to indicate dear deceased Arthur had treated himself to something of a spree in his latter years.
The ruddy, two-timing. Oh, really been doing himself proud, hasn't he? Know what? He's probably had some fancy woman tucked away under my very nose.
Arthur, come off it, love.
How the hell would we know? Same way he was always back late every Friday, wouldn't it? Splashing out on some damn cart while dear darling Rose held the fort.
Found whatever sort of consolation you could.
What?
Nothing. Nothing that matters.
But it did. Amazing how Rose's change of circumstances affected Harry. His little treats, the odd presents, became fewer and fewer. It eventually got so bad, she even suggested he get himself a job and help out with the housekeeping. The writing certainly seemed on the wall. What Arthur had spent the loot on continued to puzzle him, though. The secret affair Rose credited him with? Pie in the sky. There'd been no sudden change in lifestyle, so where the hell? Then it dawned on him. The shed. The stuff in the shed. They'd seen bits and pieces, but for all anybody knew, they could be sitting on a fortune. But why they? It didn't take Harry long to drop the plural notion of things. Well, he'd earned it, hadn't he? Had it coming to him, didn't he? His chance came a couple of nights later. The night of the storm. Such a storm. There'd been nothing like it since the night he'd barged in on Arthur in the garden shed. It was the memory of that night that took Harry to the living room window now. And as he peered through into the night, he saw it. A light on, down there, in the shed, slanting through the dirty panes onto the lawn. And even at this distance, Harry could see the door was ajar, almost invitingly ajar. It could be he'd underestimated Rose. Perhaps she had come to the same conclusion as he had, was down there now, taking stock, making plans, about to leave him high and dry.
Hello? Anyone in there? Rose? You back? Rose? Is that you in there? Rose!
And then Harry saw it. Sat under the swinging lamp, in the very center of Arthur's work table, the family album. It drew Harry to it like a magnet.
Oh, my God. My dear, dear God.
Open at the first page, and the eyes of the original owner, long dead but caught forever, staring out at him. The eyes of the dead, straight from the grave, staring out at him from a slime of maggot-ridden putrescence. And from those eyes, a fungus-like growth, smearing itself, obliterating the snapshot images of those strangers who had dared to invade the rest of its pages.
Harry and Rose at the seaside. Harry and Rose at picnic, Windsor Castle. Harry and Rose. Harry and Rose at the birds. At the bird sanctuary? But how? That very last day, but how? They never even found his damn camera. So how the hell?
It was the click that made Harry freeze. The unmistakable double click of a shotgun being cocked. In the age it took him to turn, he saw the thing that had once been a man, slowly raising the gun now, staring down the sights at it. A man in an old-fashioned hunting costume, Norfolk jacket, and trousers tucked into gaiters. That dead socket of an eye staring down the sights at him, a dribbling mouth, the cheekbones thrusting through the gray parchment of putrefied flesh. Oh, no. There was no mistaking the album's original owner.
William James Willoughby!
No! No! In the name of Jesus! No!
It was as far as Harry got. His heart beat now like some great animal trapped in his chest. A great, insurmountable sea pounding, roaring through him, and finally dragging him down, ever down, into his unknown depths. Then it was over. He lay quite still, done, all done. Arthur waited a full minute to be sure before he lowered the gun and removed the mask. And the figure that now knelt beside his dead friend's body bore no resemblance to that mottled harlequin of death.
I'm glad you didn't make me pull the trigger, Harry. Anyway, I doubt if I could have found it in me. But the album, the mask, quite works of art, wouldn't you say? No violence in me, though. No real violence. Not against you, dear friend. Not against Rose. Not even when I was forced to watch the two of you together. Me? Always cast in the role of poor old Arthur, eh? So gullible. So naive. So easy to trick. Until that day at the sanctuary. Oh, poor Harry.
Arthur climbed over the garden fence and took a shortcut over the fields. He buried his grotesque mask and period costume in a carefully prepared plot. From there, he continued on foot to a small suburban station where he took a train heading north. A very ordinary little man, one of the faceless ones. The powers that be decided Harry had suffered a heart attack, which he had. A year later, Rose found herself a new fancy man, sold the house, and moved to a different love nest. One day, the new owners will find the album, mildewed, past saving. They'll make noises of disgust, handle it with gloves, and finally burn it on a bonfire. It's of no account. It had served its purpose.
That was The Family Album, starring Maurice Denham as Arthur Goodby and Liz Fraser, Rose, with James Kerry as Harry, Aubrey Morris, Mr. Martin, and Anthony Newland, the coroner. The Price of Fear was presented by Vincent Price, written by William Ingram.
The Price of Fear. Brought to you by Vincent Price.
Glancing through my morning paper over breakfast today, I noticed that an enterprising gentleman in the catering business has invented a musical hot dog called, would you believe, a humburger. Isn't it amazing the things some people will eat? Food, by the way, is something of a hobby of mine, and I never cease to wonder at the incredible results that can be achieved by a good chef with a few basic ingredients. A little meat, a few vegetables, a glass of wine, sprig of parsley, and voila. You know, there are few more interesting experiences than being allowed into the kitchen of a really first-class restaurant, to watch a master chef at work. And, of course, this privilege is rarely extended to anyone, which reminds me of an experience I had a few years back. And to give it the right flavor, let's call it speciality of the house. I was staying in New York at the time, and a friend of mine, Harry Lafler, knowing that I was interested in good food, invited me to dine with him one evening at his favorite restaurant. Harry was by way of being an international advertising man, and knowing the size of his expense account, I had imagined that I was in for an evening at one of New York's plushier night spots. Imagine my surprise, therefore, when I found myself being ushered towards a shabby brownstone building in an almost deserted downtown back street.
Well, here we are. This is Spiero's. What do you think of it?
Well, Harry, I must say it's not quite what I expected. It is rather dismal, isn't it?
I'll have you know that Spiero's is the restaurant without pretensions. It is the one place in these ghastly neurotic times that has refused to compromise. When you enter Spiero's, you leave the insanity of this hour, of this day, of this year, and you find yourself for a brief span restored in spirit.
You make it sound more like a cathedral than a restaurant.
I wonder if I've done the right thing in bringing you here.
Oh, come on now, Harry. I was only joking.
You see, you are the one person I know with a knowledge of good food.
Thank you.
Knowing about Spiero's and not having an appreciative friend to share it with is like having a unique work of art locked in a room where no one else can see it. Anyway, let's not stand here talking. Let's go in.
Good evening, sir.
Mr. Lafler and a guest.
Ah, yes, sir. Please come this way, gentlemen.
The waiter led us through a mirrored foyer into a small dining room. It was no size at all, but the half-dozen or so guttering gas jets which provided the only illumination threw such a deceptive light that the walls flickered and faded into uncertain distance. There were no more than 8 or 10 tables in the room, and all but one were occupied. The few waiters serving moved amongst them with quiet efficiency. It really was very pleasant. And as soon as we were seated at the vacant table, I said as much to Harry.
There. I knew you'd like it. Wait till you taste the food. By the way, did you notice that there are no women present?
Yes, I did. Isn't that rather odd?
Spiero doesn't encourage them. Oh. And I can tell you his method of getting rid of them is very effective.
Excuse me, sir. Do you wish to be served now?
Tell me, is the special being served tonight, waiter?
Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. There is no special this evening.
But it's been a month already, and I had hoped that my friend here...
I'm sorry, sir, but you do understand the difficulties. Sir.
Oh, well, what the hell. But I was hoping, Vincent, to introduce you to the greatest treat that Spiero offers.
Oh, never mind. I'm quite sure that whatever we decide upon will be delicious.
Shall I serve at once, sir?
Yes, please.
Very good, sir.
Well, Harry, have you ordered in advance?
No, I should have explained. Spiero offers no choice whatsoever.
But suppose we don't like what we're given?
Oh, don't worry. No matter how exacting your taste, you will relish every mouthful. Just think a moment about the advantages of such a system. For instance, instead of a hurly-burly of sweating cooks trying to prepare 100 different dishes, here we have a chef who stands serenely alone, bringing all his culinary arts to bear on one task.
Oh, then you've seen Spiero's kitchen. Tell me, what's it like?
Unfortunately, I can't. I've never seen it. Oh. Believe me, I've tried. In fact, I admit that my desire to see the inside of this particular kitchen has become almost an obsession with me.
Well, have you ever mentioned this to Spiero?
At least a dozen times. But he just shrugs his massive shoulders and smiles. Still, I've never given up hope.
At this point, the waiter reappeared, bearing 2 soup bowls and a small tureen, from which he slowly ladled a measure of clear, thin soup. I must confess that I tasted his soup with some curiosity. It was delicately flavored, bland to the verge of tastelessness. Automatically, I reached for the salt.
Well, what do you think of the soup?
Excellent.
If you'll pardon me for saying so, you don't.
What?
You do not find it excellent. You find it flat and badly in need of salt.
But
how do I know?
Yes.
Because that was my reaction when I first dined here. But I'm confident that you will make the same discovery as I did. By the time you've finished your soup, your desire for salt will be non-existent.
Well, Harry proved to be quite right. And before I had finished the soup, I was relishing every mouthful of it. It was really wonderful. Harry smiled at me across the table.
Well, do you agree with me now? Wasn't I right?
Yes, you certainly were.
You will find that the absence of condiment is only one of several noteworthy characteristics which mark Spiro's. I may as well prepare you for the rest. For example, no alcoholic beverages of any sort are served here.
Oh, really, Harry?
Also, there is a ban on the use of tobacco in any form.
Oh, but good Lord, is this a restaurant or a temperance hotel?
You don't understand. By alternating stimulant and narcotic, you seesaw the delicate balance of your tastes so violently that it loses its most precious quality, the appreciation of fine food.
Not another word was spoken until we had both finished our main course. Nor was there any need for words in the presence of such food. It was delicious. And it was only with a great effort that I prevented myself from wolfing the lot at one go and establishing myself as a grade-A glutton on my very first visit to this amazing restaurant. When we had both finished eating, Harry and I smiled at each other contentedly. We were both aware that we had enjoyed an exceptional culinary experience. Harry, if I had any doubts about Spiro's, I apologize unreservedly. In all your praise of the place, there is not a single word of exaggeration.
That is only part of the story. You heard me mention the special, which unfortunately was not on tonight's menu. Well, what we've just eaten is as nothing when compared to the absolute delights of that special.
Good Lord, what is it? I mean, nightingale's tongues, fillet of unicorn?
Neither. It is lamb.
Lamb? Oh, come on, you've got to be joking.
If I were to give you in my own unstinted words my opinion of this dish, you would think me insane. That is how deeply the mere thought of it affects me. It is a select portion of the rarest sheep in existence. Lamb Armistan.
Armistan?
A remote and almost unknown place on the border which separates Russia and Afghanistan. From chance remarks dropped by Spiro, I gathered it is hardly more than a plateau which grazes the pitiful remnants of a flock of superb sheep. Spiro, by some means or other, has obtained exclusive rights to this flock, and is therefore the only restaurateur in the world ever to have lamb Armistan on his menu. I can tell you, the appearance of this dish is a very rare occurrence indeed, and nobody ever knows the exact date on which it will be served.
But surely Spiro could provide some advanced knowledge of this event.
The only objection to that is simply stated. Should advance information slip out, then the professional gluttons, in which this city abounds, would get the opportunity to taste this dish, and sooner or later drive out the regular patrons.
You don't mean to say that these few people present are the only ones in the entire city who know of the existence of Spiro's?
In the entire world.
Oh, that's incredible.
It's kept a secret by every single country. A solemn obligation. By accepting my invitation this evening, you automatically assume that obligation. I hope you can trust me.
Well, if that's the way you want it, Harry, of course I can.
It may sound strange to you indeed. It may border on eccentricity. But I'm a solitary man, and I feel to my depths that this restaurant is both family and friend.
I must confess that until that moment, I had never really thought much about Harry's private life. To me, he was a pleasant friend and dining companion, and his private affairs had never really concerned me. Now, hearing him refer to Spiro's in this manner, I almost came to feel sorry for him. By the end of 2 weeks, Harry's invitations for me to join him at Spiro's had become something of a ritual. Now, I am by nature one of those people with a lean and hungry look, but I began to notice that I was rapidly putting on weight. I was, to tell the truth, becoming plump. I began to wonder whether Harry, by no means a lightweight, had also been lean before he started to dine at Spiro's. Thinking the whole thing over, I decided that I would not refuse to eat at the restaurant until I had both tasted the lamb Armistan and also been introduced to the amazing Mr. Spiro. And then one night, a few weeks later, I achieved both these ambitions, and both, I may say, exceeded my expectations.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Tonight is the special, sir.
What? Well, this is it. The culinary triumph of all times. And faced bad, you are embarrassed by the very emotion it distills.
Yes, I must confess that my heart is certainly beating faster than usual. Tell me, Harry, the other diners, do they feel the same way?
Well, of course they do. Look around you and judge for yourself.
Yes, you're right. Anyway, there's comfort in numbers. It's nice to know that we all have the same basic animal feelings and can anticipate, or should I say, slobber over our meat.
Oh, look, one of our number appears to be in for disappointment. Over there, at the end table, the empty seat.
Oh, yes, the stout bald man. He's not here tonight. I do believe it's the first dinner he's missed here in weeks.
Rain or shine, crisis or calamity, I don't think he's missed an evening at Spiro's in 10 years. Imagine his disappointment when he finds that he's missed the speciality of the house.
Mr. Lafleur and friend, I am so pleased, so very, very pleased.
Ah, Mrs. Spiro.
Tonight, gentlemen, the lamb Armistan will be an unqualified success. I myself have been stewing in the miserable kitchen all day, prodding the foolish chef to do everything just so. The just so is the important part, eh? But I see your friend does not know me. An introduction, perhaps.
The words ran in a smooth, fluid eddy. They rippled, they purred, and I found myself hypnotized and could do no more than stare as Harry performed the introductions. Spiro's mouth, the mouth that uncoiled this sinuous monologue, was alarmingly wide, with thin, mobile lips that curled and twisted with every syllable. He had a wide nose and wide-set eyes. It was an amazing face, and somehow I had the feeling that I had seen it before. It was somehow familiar.
I am so very pleased to meet you, Mr. Price. So very, very pleased.
Oh, thank you. How do you do, Mr. Spiro?
You like my little establishment, eh?
Oh, yes.
You have a great treat in store for you today, I assure you.
My friend is by way of being a great admirer of yours, Spiro.
True.
Very great compliment. You compliment me with your presence, and I return the compliment with my food. Eh? But I assure you, the lamb Armistan is far superior to anything of your past experience. All the trouble obtaining it, all the difficulty of preparation is truly merited.
You know, I've wondered why, with all these difficulties you mentioned, why you even bothered to present lamb Armistan. Surely your other dishes are excellent enough to uphold your reputation.
Yeah, perhaps it is a matter of psychology. Someone discovers a wonder and must share it with the others, eh? Or perhaps it is just a matter of good business.
Well, then, in the light of all this, and considering all the conventions you impose on your customers, why don't you turn it into a private club?
So perspicacious. I will tell you. Because there is more privacy in a public eating place than in the most exclusive club in existence. Here, no one inquires into your affairs. No one desires to know the intimacies of your life. We are not curious about our guests. We welcome you when you are here. We have no regrets when you go. That is the answer, eh?
Yes, I'm I'm sorry. I had no intention of prying.
No, you are not prying. On the contrary, I invite questions.
Don't let Spiro intimidate you. I've known him for years, and I assure you his bark is far worse than his bite. But before you know it, he'll be showing you all the privileges of the house, except inviting you into his precious kitchen, of course.
For that you may have to wait a little while, I'm afraid.
What did I tell you? Come on now, Spiro. The truth. Has anyone except staff ever stepped into that kitchen of yours?
You see on the wall over there the portrait of one to whom I did that honor. A dear friend and a patron of long standing.
Where? Oh, yes, there. Who is it?
Oh, it's Andrew Herring, the writer. You know the one, Harry. He used to write those marvelously cynical articles for the New American. And then he took himself off to Mexico, I think it was, and disappeared.
Of course. And here I've been sitting, staring at that picture for years without recognizing it. It must have been a blow for you when your old friend disappeared, Spiro.
It was, I assure you, gentlemen. But I like to think of it this way. He was probably greater in his death than in his life, eh? A most tragic man. He often told me that his only happy hours were spent here at this table. Pathetic, is it not? And to think the only favor I could ever show him was to let him witness the mysteries of my humble kitchen.
You seem very certain of his death. After all, as I remember, no evidence has ever turned up to support it.
None at all. Remarkable, eh? But no more talk, please, gentlemen, for here comes the speciality of the house, lamb armistan.
Spiro served the meal himself, taking great care not to lose a single drop of gravy as he sliced the joint, underdone to perfection. He filled the 2 plates with the chunks of dripping meat.
Gentlemen, bon appetit.
With great deliberation, I took a mouthful of the lamb armistan. It was magnificent.
Good, eh? Better than you imagined?
It is as impossible for the uninitiated to imagine the delights of lamb armistan as
for a mortal man to look into his own soul?
Perhaps. Perhaps you have just had a glimpse into your own soul, eh?
Yes, perhaps. And a gratifying picture it made, too. All fang and claw.
Well, I must be going. But sometimes, my friend, when you have nothing better to do, sit perhaps for a little while in a dark room and think of this world and what it is and what it is going to be. Then you must turn your thoughts to the significance of the lamb in religion. It will be so interesting. And now, gentlemen, I have interrupted your meal for too long. Au revoir, gentlemen.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
He's an interesting man, Spiro, very interesting man. You know, Harry, he reminds me of someone. I just can't think who. You don't think I offended him in any way, do you?
Offended him? No. Goodness, no. He loves that sort of talk. Lamb armistan is a ritual with him. Get him started, and he'll just go on forever.
It was a month later that it finally came to me exactly who it was that Spiro reminded me of. And when it did, I laughed out loud. Of course, Spiro reminded me of the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland. You remember, the cat only grinned when it saw Alice. It looked very good-natured, she thought. Still, it had very long claws and a great many teeth, so she felt that it ought to be treated with respect. I mentioned this to Harry that night as we were walking along that dismal street that led to Spiro's.
You may be right, but I'm not a fit judge. Anyway, it's a long time since I read Alice in Wonderland. A very long time.
Help!
What? Help! Look there. Outside Spiro's. Isn't that one of the waiters?
Yes.
Looks as though he's in trouble.
He's being attacked. Come on.
Yes.
Help!
Goddamn pickpocket. Push me, will you? You're looking for a goddamn fight, huh? Well, you got one, mister.
Let me go! Let me go!
Not yet, you lousy little creep.
Well, what's going on here?
Help me, sir! This man, he's drunk! He tried to stab me!
Oh, drunk, am I?
Oh, we'll... Hey, you
Hey, grab him, Harry. Quick! Look out for that knife.
Let go of him. Do you hear? Let go.
What the hell's happening here? I'll cut your goddamn throat, mister. No, you don't.
Is he all right, do you think? That was some punch, Harry.
I think he's stunned. He banged his head as he fell.
Yeah, well, in any case, it's a job for the police.
No, sir.
What?
No police. Mr. Spiro does not like police.
Oh, now, wait.
I beg you, no police.
Aye. Anyway, he's coming round. Oh, he'll be all right. But what started all this anyway?
I pushed against him accidentally, and he accused me of robbing him. He's drunk, sir.
You can say that again. Well, now, you go inside and get cleaned up. We'll see to him.
Thank you, sir. To you, I owe my life. If there is anything I can do to repay you.
You just cut along, and if Mrs. Vera has any questions, you tell him to see me.
Yes, sir. You saved my life. Thank you, sir.
And with that, the waiter disappeared into the restaurant. Well, after all the excitement and kerfuffle of that incident, I must confess that I found I had quite an appetite. And as soon as we were comfortably seated in the restaurant, Harry and I debated with some trepidation as to whether or not we could expect the special lamb armistan that evening. Soon our regular waiter appeared and carefully set 2 tumblers on the table. We almost simultaneously inquired after the special.
No, sir. I'm sorry, sir. No special tonight.
Oh, hell, just my luck. And I'll probably miss out on it next time, too.
Why, Harry? You going away?
Yes, damn it. I'm off to South America for a month or 2 in order to mount a new campaign for some very rich clients.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. When do you leave?
Tonight. I managed to wangle some reservations. This was intended to be in the nature of a farewell celebration.
Oh, and no special. What a shame.
Just my luck.
Well, I'm going to miss you, Harry. I have enjoyed our evenings together, and these little dinners of ours have, well, they've come to mean a great deal to me.
Shall I serve now, sir?
Of course, I didn't realize you were waiting.
Shortly afterwards, the waiter served us, and we turned our attention to our dinner. Harry finished his quickly and continued to bemoan his fate and to regret loudly the thought of missing lamb armistan during his trip. Then, just as I finished my meal, a waiter leaned over to take Harry's plate. It wasn't our usual waiter, but the man who we had rescued from the drunken sailor. I asked him how he was feeling, but to my surprise, he completely ignored me, and with the air of a man under great strain, he whispered to Harry,
"My life. I owe it to you. I can't repay you."
Well, you have repaid me with your thanks. Please, let's hear no more about it.
But I will help you, sir, even if you don't want me to. Do not go into the kitchen tonight.
Huh?
My life for yours, sir. Tonight or any night. Do not go into Spiro's kitchen.
Why shouldn't I go into the kitchen? Don't be absurd.
What's going on here? Is everything all right, gentlemen?
Ah, good evening, Spiro. This man is a little unnerved, I think.
Ah, yes. An unfortunate experience.
He's saying something about my not visiting your kitchen. What's it all about? You know what he means?
But of course. He was giving you good advice. It so happens that my too emotional chef heard some rumor that I might have a guest in the kitchen tonight. He flew into a fearful rage and even threatened to give his notice on the spot. However, have no fear. I have succeeded in showing him what a signal honor it is to have a true connoisseur observe him at his work firsthand. That is all. You, Sancho, you are at the wrong table. See that it does not happen again.
The waiter slunk away without daring to raise his eyes, and Spiro drew up a chair to the table. He seated himself and drew his hand lightly over his hair.
My invitation for you to visit my humble kitchen, I had hoped, Mr. Lafleur, to be a surprise, but now the surprise is gone, and all that is left is the invitation.
Are you serious? Do you mean that at last we really are to witness the preparation of food in your kitchen tonight?
No, Mr. Lafleur, not both. I am faced with a dilemma of great proportions, gentlemen. You, Mr. Lafleur, have been my guest for 10 years, but our friend here.
Oh, Mr. Spiro, I really understand perfectly. I mean, this invitation is solely to Harry here, and Naturally, my presence is embarrassing. Well, look, no, wait a minute. As it happens, I do have another engagement for later, and I must be on my way anyhow. So you see, there's no dilemma at all, really.
Absolutely not. That wouldn't be fair at all. Surely, Spiro, you can make an exception on this one occasion.
I'm very sorry.
Harry, I am not going to sit here and spoil your great adventure. Believe me. And then just think of that ferocious chef. I'm sure he's just dying to get his cleaver into you.
So humorous.
So I'll just say goodbye now and leave you to Spiro. I'm sure he'll take pains to give you a good show.
Well, that's good of you, Vincent. Thanks. I hope you continue to dine here while I'm away.
Oh, and have a good trip, Harry.
Thank you. Bye now.
I will expect you, Mr. Price. Au revoir.
Au revoir. And so I left them to it, with smiling Spiro and Harry Lafler, about to realize his greatest ambition. On the way out, I stopped in the foyer to collect my coat, and as I was straightening my tie, I caught a glimpse in the mirror of Harry and Spiro, already at the kitchen door. Spiro was holding it open invitingly wide with one hand, while the other hand rested lightly on Harry's plump, meaty shoulder, squeezing it ever so gently, almost lovingly, rather in the way a housewife squeezes a prime fat turkey before she puts it into the oven. I've never seen or heard of Harry Lafler again. Shortly afterwards, I left New York in order to do some filming in England. I've not been back since, and therefore I have never had the opportunity of dining again at Spiro's, nor of renewing my acquaintance with its mysterious owner. In the intervening years, however, my interest in food and its preparation has increased, and I can now create and experiment with recipes of my own. But I must confess that even in my wildest flights of culinary fancy, I have never yet dared to attempt lamb amistad.
That was Vincent Price, bringing you The Price of Fear. Co-starring in The Speciality of the House was Hugh Burton, with Francis de Wolfe, Vernon Joyner, and William Slay. The Speciality of the House was first recounted by Stanley Ellin, dramatized by Barry Campbell, and produced by John Dias.
Vincent Price presents Howell Bennett, Elizabeth Proud, and John Quayle in Out of the Mouths by William Ingram. Vincent Price.
Hello and welcome. Richard Atkins was a research boffin. If you were to ask him what kind, he might tell you, I specialize in electrospectroanalysis of human enzyme and molecular structures. And when you'd look suitably blank, he'd smile and add, what makes us tick. To understand Richard Atkins, the trick was not to let his modest manner fool you. At 40, he was probably the best in his field, one of a very select research team. The world seemed his oyster. But then, the same world lost sight of him. Many years later, those caring enough to remember settled for became a bit of a cropper, all a bit hush-hush under the carpet. Few knew the cropper was entirely of his own making.
David, what the hell are you still doing here? Well, I just thought I'd hang on a bit, see how it went. My confrontation with the head, much as expected, all very low-key, civilized. So, I shouldered the crown. If you wanted one. Touching, but don't you think I'm a bit old for all that? I was thinking more along the lines of drink. Improvement. This shouldn't take me long. Richard, what the hell are you doing? Clearing out my desk. But why? Can't it wait till tomorrow? It'll save me the extra trip in. Besides, I don't think I could stand all those raised eyebrows, querying glances. Told you so from the less charitably inclined. It would only be with my best interests at heart. If you like. I don't think I could take that either. Right? Right. Truth? Truth. Final tally. 1 box of paper clips. 3 pencils, black, for the use of. Oh, 2 broken. They're not for the use of. Assorted elastic bands come in handy. I can make tanks out of cotton reels and matches. That brings back memories. Doesn't it? Just the caper for whiling away my premature retirement. Richard. Not pulling your weight, old fellow. Reasons best known to yourself, old fellow. But the whole project falling behind, old fellow. Rest of the team down, old fellow. Dee-da, dee-da, dee-da. That was in triplicate, wasn't it? Just about. Was that all he said? Just about. Really rather touching, What? Whatever it was, he thought he was doing, poor old sod. So stewed in scientific jargon, anything approaching the human touch is quite beyond him. Ever the scientist. Options open right to the end. Oh? Showed me the door, but still didn't have the guts to slam it hard behind me. Oh? Losing a good man, that's a fact. Big step, couple of weeks leave, time to think it over. That came in triplicate, too. Why don't you? Right. I think I've earned that drink now. By the way, how's Rachel? Fine, just fine. It's been ages. Kate and I were wondering if you'd better... Oh, for Christ's sake. I think we can skip the social niceties, don't you? There's no need, David, old mate. For what? For whatever the hell it is you think you're doing. Richard, we're not just colleagues, we're friends. No hard feelings, but I don't think friendship comes into this. Not in the long run. A sounding board, then. Some kind of explanation. You owe it to me. Do I, Charles? Yes. Yes, I do, don't I? Let's face it, friend David. I was roped in on the project because they thought I could contribute something. They obviously still do. I could almost write them my end-of-term report. Reliable, diligent, though very occasionally restive, but perfectly manageable. Well, I just reached the point where I got sick of being diligent at the expense of being only occasionally restive. I see. You don't. And I'm not much better equipped to explain it. Just that recently, I've been staring down the wrong end of the microscope. So busy manipulating or trying to so many pieces of the jigsaw, I've lost sight of the overall pattern of things. Go on. It's a great secret we're all after. Evolution, the fountainhead, call it what you like. Because the word hasn't been coined that could do it justice. But we've always considered it a process of growth. Growth. Growth physical, growth intellectual, growth spiritual. And I'm still scientist enough to put spiritual last. Well, I simply don't think of it as growth any longer. Deterioration. That's what we should be setting our sights on. But isn't that part of the same? No, I'm not just talking about the inevitable cellular deterioration, gaga, second childhood. I'm talking about something altogether more subtle. The kind of deterioration induced by the education of a child. What I'm trying to say is at the very outset, in the very early stages, in a child's pre-formative years. You see, I suspect it's all there. All inherent awareness, absolute knowledge, already there, encapsulated. From birth, if we can only catch the child early enough, before the educating process has begun. If we could somehow tap in, contrive to communicate with the newly born on its terms, not ours. God only knows, David, what it is we might tap into. And a little child shall lead them, if you like. Pathetic, but hardly scientific, if you like. Daunting, though, isn't that? Wouldn't even know where to begin, let alone where it might end. I told you it was too early for words.
Rachel was still up when Richard got home. He could have wished it otherwise. Concerned attention was the last thing he wanted. But behind her ministering was a feeling of something deeper, unspoken, as though she, too, had news she was finding it difficult to put into words.
More coffee?
Oh, no, thanks. It's coming out of my ears.
How are you feeling?
Death. I hoped you'd be tucked in before I got back.
David rang.
You warning? Typical.
You meant it for the best.
Typical. You've been very mute about it all.
I thought that's what you wanted.
It speaks volumes.
It's not that I'm against any decision you decide to make.
Wrong tense. But
I just think
that David might be right.
he is your friend.
Yes, he tried that tack, too.
Well, why didn't you give yourself more time? Talk about it.
What the hell is there to talk about? An instinct? You don't talk about instincts, Rachel. I just know that all these years I've been facing the wrong way, that's all. It doesn't follow I know where I'm going from here.
And you'd risk everything you've achieved, your reputation, your position, your home for that?
Oh, God forbid I should ever risk my home.
You know what I mean.
If it's the roof over your head you're worrying about, he went with the job. But a year's get out either side, all right?
Richard.
They'll stick to their side of the bargain. You can count on it. It's only to see if I'll back down, come to heel. So, not much risk of you having to pitch a tent off under the arches just yet. All right?
You think I'd mind if I had to?
No. No, I don't. That's one of the reasons I married you.
If I sounded over-anxious, petty.
No.
Concerned, then.
What the hell about?
Not for my own sake.
Surely not for mine.
Not for yours either, particularly.
Well, then?
We're going to have a child.
Rachel? Rachel?
Your face. A little child shall lead them, as the prophet said.
That's the second time I've heard that today.
Their child was a boy. Their decision to name it David was mutual. And by the time the christening party came around, any feeling of antagonism there might have been between Richard and his one-time colleague seemed as remote as if it had never happened.
So glad you could come, David.
My own godson's christening party. It'd be a rum old do without me. Besides, you named him after me. You're like missing your own launching. And all that stuff about setting him a Christian example. A bit below the belt, wasn't it? Lord only knows how I'm going to live up to it.
I did think, what? You might prefer to opt out.
Why on earth should I?
Past behavior patterns?
I'd take more than that. It was only a temporary lapse on your part.
Was it?
Water under the bridge.
Was it?
Which is more than can be said for these champagne bubbles.
To young Caruso. What's up, Frank? Burning the midnight oil, are we? Where are you now? In that wonderful, uncorrupted brain of yours. Where are you now, young David? Coming to grips with Pythagoras? Arguing polemics with Plato? Beyond our mediocre comprehension, I'll wager. Or was it just that nasty, wasty, stormy, warmy disturbing you then? But you must know the scientific explanation to that one. A turbulence caused by areas of high pressure moving in to fill corresponding areas of low. That's a theory, huh? Or maybe you know better, eh? We're both fine. You're disturbing Mumsy, Wumsy. can't sleep. We'd better settle for a 10-minute tour of the estate.
Rachel's call to David was brief, but behind her request that he come around as soon as possible, he sensed an underlying feeling of panic and urgency. Richard was out. Together they sat in the small kitchen, David listening intently. But Rachel was distant, far off, reliving that night of the storm. The almost hypnotic trance instilled in her husband by the wide, innocent eyes of the child.
I must have dropped off to sleep again, David. I've no idea for how long. Might have been minutes, hours. I only know I woke up with a start. The side of the bed was empty. No sound from the nursery, but a feeling of
Yes?
coldness, a chill. Something I'd never known before. I called his name down the stairs, but he didn't answer. When I eventually found him, he was in the study, standing at the blackboard.
Ordinary enough.
Yes, but there was something about it that was almost awesome. That's a funny word to use. But as though I was in the presence of...
Of what, Rachel?
He was holding young David in the crook of one arm. I couldn't see, but I knew instinctively the baby's eyes were open, wide open, staring into Richard with a kind of fierce intensity one doesn't associate with a child.
And Richard?
Oh, totally unaware of me. He was writing on the blackboard. God knows I've watched him do that at all hours. Have to get it out of my head. The only way I can get back to sleep. This time, one blackboard was filled already. He was halfway down the other.
With what?
Equation after equation. But when I looked closer, all the characters were unrecognizable, lacking his usual neatness, unmethodical, sprawling, line after line, written with a terrifying urgency. But in the handwriting of a child, David. The writing of a child. It was the baby he felt was there. The whimper of recognition, part sigh, part warning. The writing stopped.
And Richard?
He went back to bed. I nestled in his arms. It didn't even refer to me.
Didn't you?
I never felt the need. Till now. That's why I asked you over.
Oh?
It hasn't stopped. Night after night. Not always with a baby in his arms. Sometimes in the cot at his side. But always this telepathy between them. I just couldn't keep it to myself any longer. I needed you to see for yourself.
Then how about now?
Yes. All right, then. Through here.
Close the door. No chance of coming back.
Oh, not before lunch. Taking young David down to the park.
Let's get on with it then.
Well, what do you make of it? What's on the blackboard?
What can I say? Child's scrawl, but some kind of formula.
Related to his work when he was at the centre?
No, not even remotely. Scientific. Mathematical progression of some kind, and yet beginning on this board in complexity, diminishing, simplifying to end in just two indivisible symbols. Alpha, omega. Beginning M.
The life force.
Why did you say that?
I don't know.
Is there any chance of you making me a copy of this?
Yes, I suppose so.
As soon as you can, Rachel. As soon as you possibly can.
He wondered whether to tell Richard of David's visit. Wondered, too, whether he sensed some deeper significance behind the casual manner with which she finally mentioned it. But if he did, he showed no outward sign of it.
We had a visitor.
Who?
David.
Well, you say that young David? godfather comes a-calling and only mumsy-wumsy here to receive him. What did he want?
Nothing special. Just dropped by to see you, Godson.
We see.
What expected?
We sold her the park, didn't we? Had great fun, didn't we? God knows when I found myself sitting on the swing last. Yes. Thinking of writing to the council. Adult Discrimination Act. 20-year-old age limit at the very least.
You still wouldn't qualify, darling.
What?
Oh, sorry, I've forgotten your fork.
I'll manage with a spoon.
Don't be silly.
I'd rather manage with the spoon. Whoops. Now look what he's done. Naughty, Daddy, all over his vest, bib and tucker.
You were warned.
Bib and tucker, bib and tucker, bib and tucker, bib and tucker. What? It would be only too easy to gloss over the weeks that followed. For Rachel, the overpowering imperative desire was to convince herself that everything was normal, that nothing untoward was happening, and that even if it wasn't, the real trouble lay in her own imaginings, that nothing in their lives had really changed, that Richard's affinity, this strange extra affinity he had with his son, unspoken, undeniable, was simply part of the process, part of becoming a father. She clung to the notion like a life raft.
I only have to give him time. No, give myself time. If there's anything that needs questioning, it's my attitude. My ridiculous, jealous reaction to it all. As though my own son was some kind of a stranger. An intruder.
The very notion of it appalled her. And so she had to find her consolation in the belief that her husband's behavior was simply a phase again. Of one thing she felt sure, no outside help was needed, especially from the likes of David, the meddling do-gooders. In fact, to be avoided at all costs. A period of togetherness, seclusion, away from the world, was what they needed. But it was Richard, this new Richard, that resisted it, resisted with all his being. There was about him now an almost animal-like capacity for living he'd never known before, as though a contest between them. Mental, but at the same time primevally physical. A morning dawned when she was forced to admit she was losing, that she no longer had any choice, and as before, it was to David she turned.
Rachel, are you all right? Thanks. I got your message, but when I rang back, I didn't recognize the voice, so I hung up.
Yes. Richard said he thought it was probably you.
Richard said.
It didn't sound like him.
Well, he's either got one hell of a cold or his voice is on the change.
Come on through.
What's all that racket?
Oh, just quick. Coffee?
No, thanks. Rachel, you've been avoiding me.
Yes. That stuff on the blackboard, you've run into a brick wall, haven't you?
We've fed it through the computer.
Huh?
A blank, beyond computer analysis.
Thought as much. Honey, it doesn't really seem important now. He knew I gave it to you.
You told him?
Just knew. It didn't seem to upset him. Only part of the key was what he said. All in the eyes. He was smiling at the baby at the time. And the baby seemed to know what he was saying and smiled back. And now, look.
What is it, Rachel?
Come here to the window. Well, tell me what you see.
Richard?
Hardly believable, is it? The change in him. Childlike. That's it, childlike.
What the hell's he up to?
Oh, the boy next door. fall into the garden. In the old days, Richard would have tossed it back with a picking off in his trouble. Yes! Look at him now.
With a father instinct coming at him.
You know that, isn't it?
Competitive. Like equal.
Would you believe he went out and bought a train set for young David?
A bit premature.
Wasn't it, though? He's laid it out in the attic. Most nights now I wake to find his bed empty.
I see.
And that ridiculous tiny train rattling overhead. He always despised chemistry, a pet hobby, retards a child's ability to read. Now it's the first thing he turns to when he grabs the morning paper. Idiotic, isn't it? His eating habits have changed from savoury to sweet. Would you believe lemonade and peanut butter sandwiches? His dress is more slovenly, his movements more awkward, more boisterous, as though... Well, look at him, David, look at him.
Yes.
You see it, too.
Turning back the clock. I think somehow he's achieving it. The eyes, it's all in the eyes. That's what he said. Though the two of them have developed some kind of extraordinary telepathy between them. Young David, Richard, the child, and the man, enabling him to project himself backwards instead of forwards. Ultimate knowledge through absolute innocence. Backwards, ever backwards. Until...
Until what?
Dear God, who knows?
They had no ready-made label to stick on Richard's sickness, so they coined one, Eumentis, pathological regression. They went through the processes, of course, psychoanalysis, mental therapy, deep hypnosis. But Richard's tragic condition deteriorated. They tried to save face by calling it prescribed, inevitable. They could also have added doomed. One bright summer's morning, if you'd been up early enough, you'd have spotted the ambulance arriving outside the house. You'd also have seen a schoolboy, dressed in a neat gray worsted suit, face beaming, hair slicked, as though for an outing. The nursing home attendant opened the ambulance's back door, but young Master Richard elected to sit up in the front. The accompanying doctor saw no reason to object. As they began to pull away, the boy gave a quick backward glance to an upstairs nursery window. Beyond it, the baby, young David, stirred in his crib and gave a smile of pure innocence.
It, whatever it is that has been happening to me, has stopped. I myself have no doubt of the fact. I do not need their sums and figures of my height and weight, or their little knowing nods and clicks of encouragement, as though it were all their doing. My journey of discovery has come to its end. A good breeze today. Later, they will let me take my sailing boat to the little pond in the grounds. I shall watch it fighting the elements and the rough seas. A week or so ago, they brought a young boy, David, here to see me. He might have been 5 or 6, but I can get nothing from him again. Life's manipulators have had their effect. His wearisome progress forward, thanks to them, has begun. As a result, my return backwards towards... but I shall never know now. It's my birthday tomorrow. They have not yet decided whether I shall be 11 or 12. It doesn't really matter. I know I have stopped in time. No backwards now. No forwards either. The lessons they will give me will certainly get them nowhere. I am far, far beyond their lessons.
Many years later, the young David was to ask his mother, "What happened to my father?" Rachel had prepared herself for that moment. He went away, a long, long way away. It was not too far from the truth.
That was Out of the Mouths, starring Howell Bennett as Richard, Elizabeth Proud, Rachel, and John Quayle, David. The Price of Fear was presented by Vincent Price, written by William Ingram, and directed by John Dyer.
The Price of Fear, brought to you by Vincent Price.
Hello, welcome. This story, which I've called Soul Music, involved me purely by chance. Due to some slight technical failure, the non-stop flight I'd been booked on for filming commitments in Rome was diverted to Paris. And there in the refreshment lounge at Orly Airport, I met up again with Marianne. I spotted her several minutes before she saw me, but the recognition was as immediate as if the intervening years had never been. The same cool, poised awareness, even in that overcrowded, bustling setting. A kind of inner apartness. It would be difficult to describe. It made the frustrations of the flight, even the possibility of an overnight stop, only too worthwhile. The fact that her husband, the international violinist David Clementis, was bound to be traveling with her, in music circles they had long been nicknamed the Inseparables, offered the opportunity of a double treat.
My dear Vincent, it's sweet of you to say so.
Cream?
Thank you.
Well then, out with it. How's the maestro?
Oh, David's fine.
Well, more to the point, where's the maestro? Well, let's face it, the old crowd always referred to the two of you as the inseparable.
Inseparable? Oh, yes. Yes, they did, didn't they?
No, don't tell me. You've got him lurking underneath the table. Stradivarius tuned and at the ready. Or what's it to be, romance or a touch of chichonia?
Well, David came on ahead, an earlier flight.
Oh?
Well, no, nothing mysterious. Partly business agents, an impresario, well, you know. Besides, he's never appeared in this particular hall before. In violin circles, it's got a reputation as a dead house. He suddenly got a bit jittery about the acoustics.
Typical David.
Huh?
Well, always the perfectionist.
Yes. Yes, he was, wasn't he?
Marianne, you all right?
Yeah, well, I'm fine. I'm just a bit tired, but I'm fine.
Global Air regret to announce the cancellation of their Flight 108 to Rome. Passengers are requested to report to the inquiry desk for details of overnight accommodation and alternative bookings for the continuation of their journey.
Well, that settles it, doesn't it?
Mesdames, messieurs,
Well, what could be nicer? A night on the town in gay Paris, all courtesy of good old Global Air. To begin with, you can wangle me a ticket for the maestro's concert, even if it does mean swinging from one of the chandeliers.
Oh, but
No, I insist, and afterwards I'll come backstage, whisk him away from the backslappers, and carry the pair of you off to a secret little bistro I've been saving in Montmartre. Food before decor. And just the three of us.
Oh, but surely, if you've got an early morning flight to catch...
Marianne, is anything the matter? It's almost as though you'd rather I stayed well clear.
No, it's nothing really. Nothing in the world. It's really wonderful seeing you again.
You think the same will go for David?
David? Well, of course. Why should it be otherwise?
My ticket for the concert was waiting for me at the box office, as promised. The attendant handed it across coolly. No, almost contemptuously. I'd expected some kind of covering note from either Marianne or David, but there was none. I passed through the heavy velvet curtains and stood at the back of the circle. There was no usher to examine my ticket, but then there seemed little need. At a generous estimate, I reckon, the whole house could have been moved forward and still barely filled the front 3 rows. Their mild enthusiasm proved premature. Sufficient to say the performance was a travesty. The adverse notices completely justified. But it wasn't until the interval, grateful for my oversized cognac in the crush bar, that I tried to grasp the cause, the reason for what I'd just witnessed. I settled for one word: contempt. Contempt on the part of the soloist. It summed up his attitude and performance exactly. Even visually, the violinist at the center of this indifference was a grotesque of the David Clementis I remember. The soloist whose charm and superlative talent had won hearts and critical acclaim in every major concert hall in the world. A veritable travesty of the immaculate, assured Clementis, whose famous profile even now stared out of the display cases that lined the walls. Contempt. Not only for that fast diminishing audience, but for himself, too. But most of all, contempt for that supreme talent that he had nurtured and that they had adulated for so long. But why? In God's name, why? I must have spoken the thought, because suddenly I was aware of Marianne standing beside me. But not the Marianne of the airport. Now she was making no attempt to hide the hurt, the need within her.
I'd hoped you might not come, that they might have found you a place on an earlier flight. But now that you have... Do you think I might have a cognac, too?
Of course. Encore un cognac.
Monsieur.
How long?
Look like this? A year or so after our marriage. In the early days, it seemed our love had made his talent flourish. It wasn't until the pact had been signed and sealed, so to speak, I began to notice the change.
What could have changed it? Why?
No. Look, let me ask the question. Now, before I came along, what would you have said was David's one love? The all-consuming passion, the reason for his very existence.
What a strange way to put it.
The reason for his very existence.
Well, I suppose...
No, don't suppose. Admit it.
All right. His music.
His own manner. It had possessed him from the very beginning, exclusively, uncompromisingly. He had no life beyond the rehearsal room or the concert room. The demands made by this God-given talent was all that he'd known until we met and loved. And I taught him to share my world, other interests, other people, other places, and therefore I displaced the total dedication, the exclusiveness of this talent. I broke the absolute stranglehold of whatever power had possessed him before.
Possessed? Why do you use the word possessed?
A strong word, isn't it?
Yes.
In the Dark Ages, they applied it to witches and warlocks and burned them at the stake, didn't they? You know, it's a word we hardly ever use now. We prefer to skirt the issue. But the talent David had possessed him as surely and as completely as any demon. The only difference was, in his case, there could be no exorcist. None. God knows we tried. But the talent had exclusive rights, possess him from within, his very soul. And when I'm around, as long as I'm around, it destroys him from within and leaves him the broken doll you saw standing there tonight.
You know, Marianne, the ancient Egyptians believed that the soul was a very real, substantial thing. That it had an actual physical location, just like any other organ. The heart, the liver, the spleen. They tried to locate it, to preserve it, to sanctify and deify it in their Coptic jars.
A couple of thousand years on, and we're only too anxious to deny its very existence. But it's there, all right. In David's case, it's in his hands. The soul talent is locked in his two hands, in the fingers, that through his music can create a heaven or a hell. Not only for himself, but for anyone who dares to interfere with it or displace it. I tried, but I failed.
Failed? But you've done so much for him. How could you have failed?
Well, David admits it too. Just now you witnessed his public admission. As surely as any warlock suffering from the tortures of the Inquisition, waiting for the fires of hell to be lit and the agonies of hell to begin.
But if what you say is true...
Well, I know it to be. That's why I'm leaving you.
Leaving him?
Don't you understand? I have no choice. I can't watch the doll dance. Not once, but over and over again. Open to the scorn and contempt of anyone who chooses to pay the price of admission. I can't afford to pay the price of admission anymore.
You desert him to this force?
It's his only chance. And it's a fair exchange. My misery for the price of his salvation.
Well, I'd better get out.
No, don't go back. You needn't. He doesn't know you're here.
And if he did?
I know he'd not expect it.
But of course I'd damn well expect it, my love. A straightforward case of rally round the flag, isn't it, Vincent, old buddy?
Oh, you know, David, that...
Mark you, the ralliers are lying a bit thin on the ground this season, but then that's only to be expected, isn't it? Well, damn you, isn't it?
Darling, there's no need.
There's every need. Oh, dear. Oh, dear, the well seems to have run dry.
I'll ring through.
Oh, well, the bar will be closed, but I'm sure if you would try using your personal charms... Please, Marianne.
Very good.
You know we're splitting up, Marianne and myself. She told you we were?
Yes, David, she told me.
Yes, of course she did. But she probably told you it was her idea, not mine. A supreme personal sacrifice in the cause of art.
Something like that.
Not true. It's my idea. My decision.
I see.
Well, do you think I'd honestly swap a single moment of my life with Marianne for the existence I knew before? For what now must take its place?
I don't know.
Well, take my word for it.
But, David, you still have the choice.
No choice. For Marianne's sake, you see. Living with me is... It's just not safe any longer. This force inside me is just not safe.
Why don't you try telling me about it?
There have been several occasions, incidents.
I don't think I understand.
It's quite simple. A desire to hurt, to inflict. First, simply with a gesture, a word, until...
Go on, David, tell me.
Until in London, about a month ago, there'd been a reception after the concert. Marianne was tired and came back early to the hotel. I remember getting back myself in the early hours of the morning. I went into the bedroom, watched her sleeping there. And then, suddenly, my hands... God! My hands about her throat. Possessed. With a will, a volition, all of their own, pressing harder, harder, until just as suddenly it stopped. No hate anymore, only remorse. Remorse and the decision that it should never happen again, ever again. But it's still there, you see. In the hands, a force over which there can be no control.
And the alternative? If you choose not to accept it, not to release it?
Pain, certainly. And perhaps, ultimately, a hell beyond anything man has ever known. As the soul fights the body to get free, and the body fights back to imprison it. The pain of tearing as the soul tries to get out.
For what seemed an eternal moment, my friend studied the frail eloquence of his hands holding the tumbler. Then, with an inner force that seemed totally their own, they jerked convulsively. The crystal tumbler lay in 1,000 razor-edged splinters at his feet. That, as it turned out, was to be my last meeting with David. And the next day I flew on to Rome. But I did hear from Marianne. We just finished some location sequences at a small fishing village when her letter arrived. There'd been a long delay in its forwarding. The postmark, Paris, a good month earlier. I opened it with an almost positive conviction of what I would find.
I know what a shock this will be to you. David collapsed as soon as we got back to the hotel that night. By the time we got into the hospital, there was nothing to be done. You will see from one of the clippings, the jury at the coroner's hearing recorded an open verdict. But I think we, anyway, know only too well there was a very real, if inexplicable, cause. Let it remain our secret. The price David paid for his unique talent was finally exacted in full, and in a manner so bizarre I find it impossible to embark on here. But if the final awful proof should interest you, and you are returning via Paris, please ring me at this number and I will arrange a meeting with Dr. Emile Fouchard. I have already told him he may expect to hear from us, and that he is to hold nothing, I repeat, nothing back. We owe you this. Besides, to know is to share. Marianne.
To know is to share. But to know what? To share what? What was it that eventually persuaded me to do exactly as Marianne asked? To ring her number, arrange an appointment, and finally find myself seated in the good doctor's surgery-cum-consulting room just off the Rue Madeleine.
To hold nothing back. It's easily said, monsieur. But where does the knowing end and the disbelief begin?
Vincent, you have the right to know.
Well, the simple facts and findings related to my friend's death. But they might prove as good a starting point as any.
The simple facts, eh? Eh bien, so be it. Here it is. As presented in testimony at the coroner's court, for which there is allowed no room for speculation or error. A summary of these facts, then. Several witnesses of your friend's collapse in the foyer of his hotel, his admission to the Hôpital de la Vierge on the Ile de la Cité, the inescapable fact that he was pronounced dead on arrival, the admitting physician diagnosed heart failure, brought about by blood clotting, brought about by an excessive consumption of alcohol.
I see.
And so I thought, did I?
I'm sorry?
I suspect that Madame omitted to inform you that during his stay in Paris, I acted as her late husband's physician.
No, it's true. I finally managed to persuade David he might benefit from some kind of treatment.
My initial examination of the patient was thorough and exhaustive. I gave it as my considered opinion that the root cause of Monsieur Clementi's malady was mental rather than physical, which is why I used all my influence to be allowed to assist at the post-mortem. Vindication, vanity, call it what you will. Eventually it was achieved. Have you ever witnessed a post-mortem, monsieur?
Oh, no.
Then, if you are not of an over-squeamish disposition, I shall attempt to enlighten you. To begin with, then, to the casual observer, it is more an object lesson in butchery than surgery, rather the slaughterhouse than the operating theatre. The instruments we employ, for the most part anyway, might be purchased in any quincaillerie, hardware shop. The ultimate object of the exercise is to arrive at the vital organs, the brain, the heart, the lungs, the stomach and its contents, with the maximum of efficiency and the minimum of subtlety.
Yes, I understand.
To this end, then, hacksaw and cold chisel for the removal of the cranium cap, the ribs, the sternum, a scoop for the removal of the brain, a butcher's knife for pussing out the heart sac, the stomach and lung cavities. Some fresh air, perhaps.
Thank you.
A butcher's trade. So much offal to be removed, examined, disposed of, and then replaced with sufficient stuffing material as will persuade the bereaved relatives that their dear departed is as complete and unsullied as when he first came into our charge.
And as a result of this butchery?
We found nothing. Positively nothing that in any way affected my original opinion that the person I'd examined in this office not so many days before was as fit as anyone of his age, constitution, and occupation could be expected to be. Alors, cause of death, inconclusive. Consequence?
An open verdict.
And duly recorded for anyone to read.
Well, then what's the mystery?
Occurrences. Yes. Let us call them occurrences of the nature and reason for which we can only speculate.
Go on.
The cadaver of your late friend was placed in one of the wall cabinets with which every dissecting room is equipped. A kind of container, you understand, large enough to accommodate a corpse, but otherwise similar to the kind of filing cabinet you'd find among any office furnishing.
Yes, I understand.
I felt sure you would.
Well, and then?
The cabinet was locked.
Locked? Is that customary?
As I explained at the time to Madame, reserved mainly for celebrities, in view of the current excessive curiosity of the popular press. Just a precaution, you understand.
Yes.
On the very next day, a complaint from Monsieur Corbeau, the artist, was delivered by hand. The very next day.
Corbeau? But where does Corbeau come into it?
David had long ago agreed that Corbeau should one day be allowed to make a cast of his hands. But it was a long-standing, a life-standing agreement. When he read of David's death, he asked if I now had any reason to refuse that.
And?
No reason. In fact, it gave me a kind of comfort, a memento for posterity.
Doctor, you said Corbeau made a complaint.
Yes, within hours of the remains being put at his disposal.
I still have his letter, Vincent. Well, perhaps you'd like to read it for yourself.
Macabre. Grotesque. Satanic. Defilement. But what does he mean?
In that too you must judge for yourself. But first, I must stress that at no time, not right up until the locking of the cabinet, had we dissected or performed any pathological examination on the hands of the deceased. We had no reason to. They would have told us nothing. Some photographs. These taken before the cabinet was locked.
Yes, I see palm to palm, total repose.
And these taken immediately after the complaint of Monsieur Kobo had been received.
To know is to share.
You'd never have recognized them for hands. They'd been severed. No, they'd been torn away from the rest of the limb. Each joint cracked, the flesh bloated and pistulated, as though all the time, during the hell-like ritual of that post-mortem, as the surgeon butchers went about their casual ritual of carving, hacking, and scooping, the living soul captured within was screaming for escape. A living hell. To lie on a marble slab, eyes expressionless, unblinking, tongue mute, grotesquely protruding through the cavern of the larynx, simply lying there, knowing it, experiencing it, waiting only for the tortures of the hell to stop, for the chance finally to break free, and for the soul music to begin. To know is to share. I made my way back to the hotel. It was raining. At a corner, a street musician sawed forlornly away on his violin. He seemed surprised at the charity I dropped into his cap. But there was no joy in the tune he played.
That was Vincent Price bringing you The Price of Fear. Also starring in soul music was Coral Brown, with John Graham, Roger Snowden, and Michael Burnington. Soul music was first recounted and dramatized by William Ingram and produced by John Dias.
Thanks to everybody who watched the stream, and thanks to everybody who watched on YouTube. Take it sleazy.